Chapter 341, Shidi's spell. The threads of soul base source was very faint, as though they would dissipate in the air at any moment. What is this? Gongsun Cha had a curious expression. He opened his hand and the threads of soul base source flew towards his palm. The soul base source flew into his palm. Before he could study it, they entered his skin. 3 shocked exclamations sounded out. The curiosity on Gongsun Cha's face turned to surprise. Zhua Mo was also very surprised, and the last sound of shock came from Pu Yao inside Zhua Mo's sea of consciousness. Gongsun Cha closed his eyes and savored it for a while. After a moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and said joyfully, "Xixiang, what is this? This is really good." Of course it was really good. Zhua Mo muttered inside, but he was also happy. He could see that the soul base source of the fiend souls were of great benefit to Gongsun Cha. His mind suddenly moved and he asked, "Shidi, what spell are you cultivating right now?" Gongsun Cha's face blushed shyly. He said embarrassedly, I just randomly made a way to cultivate. I don't know if it is useful. I was just thinking of asking Xixiang to help." Zhua Mo looked with shock at the shy Gongsun Shidi like he was seeing a ghost. Seeing Zhua Mo's expression, Gongsun Cha's pale face became even redder like a mature peach. I heard that battle generals have specialized cultivation spells. Since I didn't have any, I thought about making something close to it. His words became smoother as he spoke, and his eyes flashed with excitement. I found later that there are many battle generals in the war chess games. Even though they are Yaoma battle generals, but I could use them as references. So I got some stuff. Xixiang, help me take a look. He ignored Zhua Mo's strange expression and spoke of his idea. At the beginning, Zhua Mo was unconcerned. If it wasn't Gongsun Shidi, and it was any other Zhuji Xiuzha that ran to him and said they were going to create their own cultivation spell, Zhua Mo would definitely put his feet on their face. Zhua Mo's expression slowly became grave. It was very clear that Gongsun Shidi's idea was much more developed than he had predicted. When he finished listening, the first thought he had was, it was too crazy. He looked dazedly at Gongsun Cha. Gongsun Cha finished speaking in one go and finally noticed the strangeness in Zhua Mo's gaze. He instantly felt uncomfortable. Had his thinking been incorrect somewhere? This shy and bashful Shidi in front of him had created such an insane and extreme cultivation spell. The contrast was too big. Zhua Mo felt it was very strange. Gongsun Cha's idea was very simple. First, he concluded what was most important to a battle general was the consciousness, because the consciousness was of the greatest help to controlling the battle situation. This was also why Yao battle generals were the most outstanding of all battle generals. Of course, Ling power was necessary. Xiuzha battle generals had their own unique qualities. Where did spiritual power and Ling power come from? The core of the spell Gongsun Cha had created was one word, steal. When Zhua Mo understood this point, he had to sigh. As expected of a battle general's cultivation spell. It completely fit with the thinking of a battle general. He was even suspicious. Had the frequent raids in Little Mountain Jia left after effects on Gongsun Shidi? What surprised Zhua Mo even more was that while this technique was very rudimentary and not complete, there were no fatal mistakes. He now understood why those threads of soul base source would enter Gongsun Cha's skin. Base source substances like the soul base source were great nutrients for Gongsun Shidi. Somewhat interesting. Pu Yao couldn't resist praising. In Zhuji Yin knows to create this spell, his future is limitless. He suddenly felt it was very absurd. Without noticing it, there was a great number of people with power and good talent that gathered beside Zhua Mo. And all of these people without exception had been unknown and disregarded before. Like Gongsun Cha. He only knew of a few rare battle generals that could comprehend spells on their own. This spell in his view was very rough and rudimentary, but as Gongsun Cha's knowledge and strength increased, the spell could be gradually perfected. It was also the beginning stages of this spell that caused Pu Yao to see the rise of a peerless battle general. Pu Yao was very emotional. Even he had never thought that Gongsun Cha would reach this step. Gongsun Cha's speed of improvement made him feel shock. Was this guy born to be a battle general? Such talent. There were only a few familiar names that he knew who could rival it. He couldn't help but glance at Suemo. This boy had great luck. Pu Yao suddenly felt anticipation. He already felt amazement at Suemo's talent. Now that he had the help of a battle general of limitless potential, what heights could they reach? At this moment, he deeply felt that he really made a profit in taking this student. The terrible accounts from the past, maybe there was the chance to get them back. Pu Yao rubbed his chin and smiled darkly. Suemo did not know Pu Yao's schemes. After asking Pu Yao and being informed that there were no significant problems with the spell, he started to help Gongsun Shidi. Gongsun Shidi's spell did not have any major problems, but the most difficult part was the first step. The core of this spell was to steal the consciousness and ling power of other entities for themselves. But at the beginning, he was like an infant and did not have the power to steal. But right now, there was a great change. The soul-based sources of these fiend souls had no impurities, were warm and nurturing. Gongsun Cha had no problems absorbing them. After discussing with Gongsun Cha for a while, Gongsun Cha instantly wanted to try it out. Battle generals were really not normal people. Suemo muttered inside. His actions were not slow as he continued his fishing. But this time, the soul-based sources were given to Gongsun Shidi. Gongsun Cha did not refuse and absorbed as much as possible. In a short while, 2 smears of red came onto Gongsun Cha's face as though he was drunk. He instantly sat down cross-legged. Suemo stopped. Gongsun Shidi's cultivation was still too shallow. It would take time to completely absorb all of this soul-based source. So he started to swallow soul-based source himself. These were great food to him too. This patch of fiendish mist was endless, and it seemed there was no end to the fiend souls inside. They continuously leapt towards the 9-turn sky-earth disk. None of them were able to touch the 9-turn sky-earth disk before they were struck by little Yao arts and were dissipated like steam to only leave behind a thin thread of soul-based source. After 4 hours, Gongsun Cha opened his eyes. With a joyful expression, he leapt up and said shamelessly, "Xixiang, let's do it again." Suemo nodded. He didn't waste words, and continued to cast little Yao arts. He used each of the 500 little Yao arts multiple times, and included some of the low-level Yao arts that he had learned from vast water clear skies, or he tried to combine different little Yao arts together. The amount of spiritual power expended by little Yao arts was very little. Suemo was also very practiced. Adding on that he continuously absorbed soul-based source, his consciousness continued to grow and he became even more at ease. This time, Gongsun Cha absorbed 2/10 more soul-based source than last time before he sat down again. After 20 hours, Suemo felt a bit tired and hurriedly put away the 9-turn sky-earth disk. Having lost their target, the fiend souls instantly left. The surrounding became quiet. Suemo sat down with crossed legs. Each of the 10 stars inside his body were bright, and the falling starlight seemed to turn as tangible as mist. He could feel his spiritual power was full as though it was going to spill. Was he going to level up? Suemo's mind moved, and he started his scripture. Sword light flashed in Wei Xing's hands. The fiend souls that leapt forward were instantly destroyed. The few threads of soul-based source flew into the flying sword in his hand. This long black sword in his hand was tall, standing up to his chest, and looked like a horse-chopping saber. It was simple in design. The black sheath did not have many adornments. He had found this black sword the first day he had been transported here. At that time, This black sword had been inserted into the ground. He had found the sword sheath nearby. This black sword was filled with a violent presence. Holding it in his hand, his mind would easily be affected. Originally, Wei Xing did not like such a vicious sword. However, he did not throw this black sword away but held it in his hand. He was using this vicious sword to train his resolve. His expression was calm, his steps unusually determined. The fiendish mist could not go within 1 zhang of him. He did not remember how long he had been in this patch of blood mist, but he was not nervous. He was actually very excited. The blood mist in his view was just a harder version of the sword cave. Going through the sword cave alone was very dangerous, but his strength had increased most rapidly in that period of time. Nothing could excite him more than increasing his strength. Also, being far removed from the common matters of the sect which irritated him, his mind was abnormally clear. He could feel his improvement. This feeling hadn't appeared for a very long time. Each step was a steady step he took towards the peak of the sword path. The first day he had been transported to this bloody mist, he had detected the strangeness of the bloody mist. After finding the black sword, he quickly found that the black sword was not affected by the bloody mist at all. When he found that the black sword could swallow the soul base source, he was shocked. This meant that there was a sword spirit inside the sword. Flying swords had sword spirits were the finest quality flying swords, but Wei Xing did not have much joy. This black sword had such a vicious and violent presence, if it had a sword spirit, it would be a vicious spirit. Strangely, no matter how he investigated, he could not find the existence of the sword spirit. His heart did not wallow in the strangeness of the black sword. Even the best flying sword was just a material object to him. If his sword heart was strong, it would not be corroded by external evils. After walking for multiple hours, he stopped and shoved the black sword in his hand into the ground beside his feet. He had discovered that the fiend's souls did not fear the black sword when it was in his hand. Once the black sword left his hand, there would definitely be nothing like the fiend's souls within 100 zhang. The surroundings were blurry. Wei Xing's brow furrowed. These past days, he tried to control his Ling power, but his Ling power was almost at its bottom. The Ling energy in this patch of bloody mist was very thin. He could only replenish his Ling power through Jingxia, but he usually did not carry much Jingxia with him. The situation wasn't good. Chapter 342, Nanyu's Little Yao Arts. Nanyu walked into the Yao Art House as usual. Her expression was calm. She met many classmates and good friends along the way. Everyone chatted, but no one had the carefree expressions they usually had. The mood was slightly tense. Today was the annual house exam. The results of the exam would greatly determine their future fate. The Purple Lotus Yao Art House wasn't a famous house, but it had some influence in this jia. This could not be separated from their strict exam. A familiar shout came from behind her. Without needing to turn her head, Nanyu knew who it was. She stopped walking, turned around, and said curiously, "Hong, aren't you exempt from the exam? Why are you here?" Hong was Nanyu's best friend. They knew each other from childhood and had a close relationship. Hong came from a very obscure little clan. However, this clan's Yao were all skilled in illusory Yao arts from birth. Hong naturally studied those Yao arts. Due to her outstanding talent, Hong had been accepted as a student by a teacher when she entered the Yao Art House. Hong did not need to go through the exam, so Nanyu felt shock at Hong's appearance. Hong was dressed colorfully and had a blooming smile on her face. "I came to see your exam. How can I miss such an important time?" Nanyu was very moved, and said, "It's just an exam. There is no need to be nervous. With a Yu's strength, it definitely wouldn't be a problem." Hong was filled with confidence. She suddenly came over with a secretive expression and said in a low voice, "They said that a Darren from the Creeping Sedges Corps." A Darren from the Creeping Sedges Corps. Nan Yu stilled and then her expression changed. The Creeping Sedge Corps of Bing Lon Darren. Hong was very satisfied with Nan Yu's expression and giggled. Other than Bing Lon Darren's Creeping Sedges Corps, where is there any other Creeping Sedges Corps? How about it, are you moved? Other than being taken as a student by a teacher, going into the military was also a pretty good path. In the military, one would be able to learn many practical Yao arts, and when enough service was accumulated, it was possible to learn more profound Yao arts. Right now, the fighting at the front was raging, and this was the best chance to accumulate service. Nan Yu smiled and didn't speak. If she had not encountered Darren, she would definitely be moved. But right now, she did not have any extraneous thoughts. It was great honor to be able to follow Darren. She was not clear to Elder's identity, but there was a point that was undoubtable: Elder had a deep history with the Wisteria clan of the South Sky. In these past days, she was left full of respect towards Elder. She could clearly feel her own strength leaping forward. The nondescript little Yao arts actually contained such deep meaning. Nan Yu's indifference was unexpected to Hong. She made a sound of surprise and re-examined her good friend. Nan Yu did not look any different than usual. She still wore plain clothing, but there seemed to be something extra to her. But what was it? Hong could not say. Did something happen recently? Hong asked probingly. Nothing. Nan Yu shook her head. Seeing Hong's concern, her heart warmed. She hesitated but did not speak of Elder to Hong. Without Darren's permission, she did not dare to carelessly speak of it. However, Creeping Sedge Corps. In the past, entering Creeping Sedge Corps was one of her goals. The mood of the Yao Art House was tense, and slightly restless. The news that a Darren from the Creeping Sedge Corps came to see the exams made every student participating in the exams excited. Creeping Sedge Corps was very strong, and Bing Lon Darren was immeasurable in her power. Bing Lon Darren was also very beautiful, and the dream of countless male students. For female Yao, being able to enter the Creeping Sedge Corps was a good route. Afterwards, Nan Yu saw the Darren that came from the Creeping Sedge Corps. This Darren's figure was upright and she was handsome and attractive. Her golden eyes were especially enchanting. This Darren most likely came from the Gold Clan. Standing on the stage, a sharp presence filled the room. Nan Yu found that this presence was stronger than the great majority of teachers in this Yao Art House. The Yao Art House teachers may have deeper skill on the Yao arts, but compared to the combat Yao that came back from the front lines, they were lacking in their killing aura. Many students became excited. It was rare to be able to enter a military troop like the Creeping Sedge Corps that was known all over the Yao world. Without any encouragement, every Yao was filled with competitiveness. The exam began with this anticipation and restlessness. The exam this time was much fiercer than in the past, but Nan Yu was not excited at all. Purple Lotus Yao Art House was not a famed house, and there were only those few familiar faces. There were no new people that made her eyes light up. Also, these novel Yao arts that she would have been excited about before could not cause any ripples in her heart. She felt very strange. It was the first time she felt so strange. In her eyes, those grand and dazzling Yao arts seemed to be insubstantial. Her mind would uncontrollably think of little Yao art combinations that could replace these dazzling Yao arts. This feeling made her uncomfortable. Before, she would be excited when she saw this Yao arts and she would constantly rehearse them in her mind. She silently warned herself to not be proud. She could not underestimate everyone just because she learned something. She suddenly thought about Elder talking of little Yao arts to her that day. She remembered every word that Elder had said. Suddenly, Hong poked her from the side. It's your turn. Oh, she responded. She refocused and looked at the exam area. Focusing her mind, she flew to the field. Her opponent was Shi Zheng. This was a familiar opponent. Shi Zhang's experiences were very similar to hers. He also worked very hard, but similarly, no teacher had accepted him. However, he was older than Nanyu, making his situation even worse. When Shi Zhang saw Nanyu, he was joyed. The Yao arts he was skilled in could subdue Nanyu to a certain extent. Begin. The teacher responsible for judging shouted. Shi Zhang's body lit up with light. This was the Yao art that he was most skilled in, rock driving flow. Shi Zhang's clan was Yao from rock, and was innately skilled in rock-type Yao arts. This, rock-driving flow, was Shi Zhang's best Yao art. The lights on his body could perform greatly in defense, and it could stop the enemy from harming him when it was cast. A light flashed at the other side. The corner of Shi Zhang's eye jerked. So fast. One Nanyu's Yao art was already completed. However, he did not panic. The higher the level of the Yao art, the more time it took to cast. Since Nanyu finished the Yao art so quickly, it definitely was a low-level Yao art, and couldn't stop, rock-driving flow. Shi Zhang was full of confidence. He knew very few moves, but due to this, the power of his, rock-driving flow, was far greater than normal low-level Yao arts and was at the borders of intermediate Yao arts. Just as he was thinking, Nanyu's Yao art had already hit the light on his body. The presence of his body loosened. This was Little Yao art, mist manifestation. The concentrated rock energy suddenly lightened and he almost lost control of it. Shi Zhang was shocked. Little Yao arts could be used like this. Several sounds of surprise occurred on the spectator stage. The eyes of the Darren from the creeping sedge core flashed with light. Shi Zhang was shocked but not panicked. Little Yao arts were just little Yao arts. Their power was very limited. If she thought she could use this little Yao art to make him lose control of the rock energy, that was a delusion. He hurriedly adjusted his consciousness to strengthen his control. He heard Pia Pia Pia, 3 Yao arts in a row which was cast with blurring speed. 2 of them hit his body, and 1 hit the ground under his feet. Little Yao art, compression. Little Yao art, gold transformation. Shi Zhang's consciousness gathered the rock energy to prevent it from dissipating. He hadn't expected a pressure to push over. When the 2 powers collided together, the rock energy immediately collapsed and turned to granite. In the blink of an eye, a thin layer of rock armor appeared on Shi Zhang's body. Yet when the rock armor took form, it blinked with a metallic gleam as though it was a thin metal armor that wrapped securely around Shi Zhang. Shi Zhang felt unable to breathe. His entire body was enclosed and separated from the outside. Gritting his teeth, he tried to absorb rock energy from below his feet when a great force suddenly came from under him. His figure instantly unbalanced and flew to one side. The others only saw a rush of water shoot up from under Shi Zhang's feet and throw him to the side. It was another little Yao art they were very familiar with, Spring Summon. Shi Zhang was hit with another light as he flew through the air. His figure was strangely pinned in midair. Little Yao art, Spider Restraint. Nanyu's 10 fingers lit up with light like 10 little lanterns. The 10 fingers was poised to act, Little Yao art, Wind Spear. Shi Zhang's head rang. He knew he lost. His body was unable to move, and was trapped and isolated by the metallic armor, meaning he could not absorb any rock energy. He would only be a sitting target. The power of wind spears was not high, but 10 wind spears were more than enough to penetrate him. I lost. His mind was blank. He didn't even know how he said the words. The spectators rumbled. The struggle they had originally imagined ended with such a strange way. Clap clap clap, on the stage, the Darren from the creeping sedge core clapped her hands as she rose, and said in praise, "Good. Little girl, are you willing to come to creeping sedge core?" Whoosh, countless eyes gathered at the same time on Nanyu's body filled with admiration and envy. Many thanks for Darren's favor. Nanyu respectfully bowed and raised her head. Her eyes were crystal clear. Nan Yu is planning on staying longer in the house. Darren, please forgive me. Hong shouted from below the field. She looked with disbelief at Nan Yu and thought she had heard it incorrectly. The Darren from the creeping sedge core was also surprised, but she was not angry. She said faintly, "Never mind then." Then she sat down. But those with eyes could see the dissatisfaction of this Darren. On the field, Nan Yu seemed unconcerned. Under the strange looks of everyone else, she casually flew off the field. The exam did not stop due to this little detour. When it ended, there were 3 students that were picked to enter Creeping Sedge Core. This Darren did not stay. After picking the 3 people, she took them and flew away from Purple Lotus Yao Art House. And Nan Yu that shook all of the house was facing Hong, who had a terrible expression, and felt a headache. Chapter 343, Integrations. Mo was very tired, but Gong Sun Cha looked as though he had just ate a full meal. At the side, Lil Pagoda was also very content. It may have been due to Lil Pagoda's urging that while Mo was fishing, the 3 little ones had come over, and divided the threads of soul-based source among themselves. Lil Black was the first to become full, then it was Lil Fire. But Lil Pagoda's round body seemed to hide a bottomless pit. When his last bit of spiritual power was used up, Mo still didn't get even one bite. Lil Pagoda contently patted its body had become slightly rounder, snuggled on Mo's body and ran off to play. Mo didn't even have the energy to swear. Dropping to the ground, he quickly started to meditate. The spiritual power in his body had been completely squeezed out. The 10 stars in his sea of consciousness started to slowly spin. As the star light swirled, the void above the sea of consciousness seemed to become brighter. Pu Yao raised his head and his expression changed as he looked at the turning stars. If Mo could look into himself at this time, he would find to his shock the starlight given off by the 10 stars in his sea of consciousness was integrating into his flesh and blood. Threads of golden light suddenly flooded out from his flesh and blood. These golden lights were as thin as hairs, and were moving freely in the flesh. These golden lights might be small, but when they appeared, they had a domineering and fiery presence. Pu Yao did not understand much about Mo physiques, but he had deep cultivation, and naturally could recognize what these tyrannical golden lights were. The golden lights were the Great Day essence energies that were born from Mo's cultivation of the Great Day Mo physique. The Great Day essence energies nurtured his body and made it even stronger. At this time, these Great Day essence energies were like a school of fish that smelt blood and leapt at the dots of starlight merging into the flesh and blood. This was. Pu Yao was shocked. How could Great Day essence energies swallow star spiritual sand? Shocked, his expression became grave. What was happening in front of him was beyond the realms of his knowledge. He was skilled in all kinds of Yao arts. To his knowledge, spiritual cultivation and the Mo physique were clearly divided and never interacted. Who could have thought the two would actually integrate? It appeared as though the Great Day essence energies were swallowing the star spiritual sand, but Pu Yao clearly saw that the star spiritual sand did not put up any resistance. Otherwise Mo's body would have become a terrifying battlefield. The Great Day essence energies were tyrannical but the star spiritual sand was profound. If the two conflicted, it definitely would be a fierce battle. This was what Pu Yao was worried about the most. In his predictions, the best result was the two sides were fine. Out of caution, he made up several plans to resolve this issue, but he had not expected that the Great Day essence energies and the star spiritual sand wouldn't conflict at all, but attracted each other. He looked dazedly at such a fantastical scene. Could the spirit and the Mo physique be cultivated together? But it had never succeeded in history. He actually knew of many great geniuses who had died on this path. The connection between Yao and Mo had never been broken. The two sides general maintained a friendly relationship since they had the same enemy. Under this kind of cultural exchange, the idea of cultivating the spirit and the body at the same time naturally was produced. This idea had appeared many years ago, but there had never been one that actually cultivated the spirit and the body. The conclusion everyone made was that the combination of the two were fine in lower stages. But as one cultivated to higher stages, the drastic gap between the two sides would be expressed. The reason that Pu Yao had not restricted Sui Mo from cultivating the Great Daimo physique was because of how powerful the Great Daimo physique was at this stage, as it was life-saving. The other reason was that his level was presently too low to cause significant problems. But the scene in front of him defied Pu Yao's expectations and knowledge. These Great Day Essence energies were not great in number, but each was peerlessly powerful. The dots of stars' spiritual sand could only be produced by Yao that had awakened their second spirit. How could they integrate? The entire process continued for 6 hours. Dots of star light came continuously from between Zhuomo's brows. The Great Day Essence energies swam everywhere and furiously swallowed the starlight. The starlight released between the brows gradually thinned. When the last bit of starlight was consumed, the Great Day Essence energies retreated back into the flesh and blood. Zhuo opened his eyes at this time. His body felt unspeakably comfortable and content. His spiritual power had completely recovered, and he felt it was slightly full, as though it had leveled up again. His body was also filled with strength. Had Great Daimo physique also advanced? Zhuo felt it was strange. When he had been at Wukong Mountain, the feeling when he was cultivating, embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation, was not so beautiful. Now, he felt very pleasurable each time, and it was really addicting. The difference between past and present was too great. He was worried that his cultivation had gone wrong somewhere. The slightly worried Zhuo hurriedly found Pu Yao in the sea of consciousness. There isn't any incorrect places in my cultivation, right? A strange look flashed across Pu Yao's face. He did not answer directly, and asked interestedly, "What? Is somewhere feeling not right?" "No, that's not it." Zhuo shook his head. "I feel that cultivation is becoming increasingly pleasurable. If cultivation is always this pleasurable, wouldn't everyone be intoxicated with cultivating every day?" The dullness and hardship of cultivation was very securely rooted in Zhuo's knowledge. Pu Yao's expression was slightly displeasured. He felt Zhuo's words were too ungrateful. Despite his displeasure, he was very interested in this matter. Taking Zhuo's start, he followed along and said, "Then let me inspect you." As Zhuo's strength increased over time, Pu Yao could not manipulate Zhuo's body like he used to without getting permission. After the inspection, the strange expression on Pu Yao's face grew. Zhuo instantly panicked. "What is it?" "Your Great Daimo physique is almost at first maturation." "First maturation? Maturation? This quickly?" Zhuo still and was then overjoyed. The maturation of a Mo physique was the representation that a Mo physique was advancing. After each maturation was completed, the maturation level of the Mo physique would go up a whole level. The more mature a Mo physique was, the more power it contained. No wonder he felt a bit strange. So his Great Daimo physique was maturing. Zhuo was very happy. He hadn't thought the first maturation of the Great Daimo physique would come so quickly. He was also slightly surprised. He had only spent a short time with the Great Daimo physique, and he was already facing the first maturation. As expected of the Great Daimo physique that ranked second of all Brigadier Mo physiques. It wasn't just powerful, it was easy to cultivate. If Pu Yao knew what Zhuo was thinking at this moment, he would die from spitting blood. He didn't look any different on the surface, but there were tsunamis in his heart. It was true that Zhuo's Great Daimo physique was facing its first maturation, but Pu Yao hadn't said the second part, which was the maturation of the Great Daimo physique, had already begun. The maturation of the Great Daimo physique this time was completely different than any of the Mo physique's maturations he knew about. MO physique maturation was an extremely important and dangerous time for any MO because the MO physique would reorganize itself during this time. If it was successful, their strength would grow, but if it failed, then it was the end. So MO were extremely sensitive to the maturation of their MO physique. When it was the time for MO maturation, they would find a safe place to safely finish the maturation. Zhua Mo did not know that his Great Day Mo physique had entered the time of maturation. The Great Day essence energies were silently changing his body, yet he did not know. The maturation process that should have been strong and dangerous had become much slower in tempo, so slow that Zhua Mo could not detect it. As the tempo slowed, risk decreased to the point there almost was no danger at all. It was very clear to Pu Yao that Zhua Mo would have no problems in finishing the first maturation, but it would just occur over a longer time frame. Pu Yao knew what this meant. The percentage of Mo that died during their maturations was the highest of those that cultivated the Mo physique. His expression changed slightly. Zhua Mo did not notice Pu Yao's abnormality. Since it was a good thing, he was too lazy to think further. Just as he left the sea of consciousness, Lilth Pagoda came over and glued itself onto him. Lilth fire chirped as it floated around his body. Lil Black was in deep slumber on Ague's head, and Silly Bird was lazily lying beside Ague. A black figure flew out of the fiendish mist like a sharp arrow in front of Zhua Mo. It was 10th grade. 10th grade exuded a killing energy all over. His black crescent had grown slightly. Zhua Mo couldn't resist praising him. 10th grade is really working hard. 10th grade clearly was very motivated by Zhua Mo's praise. He raised his little head. Just as he was going to start a speech, he suddenly saw a light flash through the narrow crack of Silly Bird's eyelids who had been sleeping. He instantly shook, and the words that reached his mouth were swallowed back down. Just at this time, a strange sound came from the sky. The enormous egg-shaped fiendish mist ball suddenly cracked. A vast and viciously sharp presence exploded and spread like a gale wind. Such strong sword essence. Zhua Mo was shocked. Ma Fan was in that ball of fiendish mist. He hurriedly raised his head and looked at the sky. The noise disturbed the entire camp. Vermilion Bird Camp and Guard Camp all stopped. The vast yet vicious sword essence made them feel fear. Ma Fan looked to be in very sorry state. His clothing was in tatters, and was covered in wounds that seeped blood. What made others feel strange was that his face was unusually peaceful and calm without any hint of pain. He slowly opened his eyes. Even though he was very far away, Zhua Mo still clearly captured the joy that spilled from Ma Fan's eyes. Had he succeeded? Zhua Mo didn't get to think closely when he saw Ma Fan's body began free-falling. He paled. The light void wings suddenly appeared on his back, and he disappeared from his spot. Almost at the same time, he appeared below where Ma Fan was falling. He caught the unconscious Ma Fan and flashed back to the camp. This change happened in a lightning flash. Before everyone could react, Zhua Mo had retreated to the campsite. He carefully placed Ma Fan on the ground. Xia Shan worriedly came over. "Darren, is Ma Fan all right?" Zhua Mo carefully inspected and said, "Nothing, he only fainted from exhaustion." Everyone finally was released from their worry. In the depth of the fiendish mist, Wei Xing suddenly stopped moving and his eyes lit up. Sword Essence. Chapter 344, Yi Zhengmu. She observed the troop of Xiuzha in the distance and could not disguise the shock in her eyes. It wasn't just her, even Yan Feng who usually looked down on everyone had uncertain and shocked expressions. The formation of this Xiuzha troop was not organized, they appeared interlocked together which gave Mu Shi the impression of teeth. The murderous intent was like an undercurrent. The continued fights between the two forces had left a deep impression of this troop. These Xiuzha were not powerful, and were of equal strength to her subordinates, but she had not won any advantage from this troop in their successive battles. Her eyes landed on the white-clothed youth at the very center. She suddenly had a feeling that this person may be her archrival. In their successive encounters, this young Xianxia was cautious in command, slow and unhurried with the mannerism of a great battle general. She admired him. This person definitely was a core disciple of a large sect and had been well taught. It was possible to see hints of this from the Xianxia around him. In order to protect him, they did not care for their lives. Mu Shi's eyes glittered. She suddenly floated out of the ranks and loudly said, "This one is Mu Shi. We will bid farewell today and meet on another battlefield. Sire, take care." The enemy ranks separated, and the white-clothed youth came forward. He said with a slightly smile, "No wonder. As expected of the Palace Lakewood clan. Lin Qian is honored." Mu Shi was shocked and did not disguise the shock on her face. "Brother Lin actually knows of the Palace Lakewood clan. You have vast knowledge. This little female is full of admiration." Wood clan was one of the 5 largest clans of the Yao world, and was the clan with the most branches. Even in the Yao world, not every person would recognize her origins. It was a testament to how powerful Lin Qian's background was to know her origins, especially since he was a Xianxia. Lin Qian saw Mu Shi was straightforward and honest and was not putting on a performance. He couldn't help but show hints of admiration in his eyes. "Miss, take care." Mu Shi smiled brightly and gracefully bowed. "Have a good trip, Brother Lin." Seeing the people disappear, Yan Feng said with slightly anger, "We are just letting them escape like this?" Mu Shi glanced at him. "Can we stop them?" Yan Feng stopped. He argued, "If we can slow them down, when the other Darren rush over and surround, then we won't have completed our task." Mu Shi interrupted him. She said faintly, "Don't forget what we came to do." Yan Feng was speechless. "This person will become a great enemy of Darren," the middle-aged person beside Mu Shi said worriedly with a grave face. Mu Shi combed her hair, and said with a smile, "There are so many Darren in the military, when would it ever be my turn to worry about this?" "Darren is too modest," the middle-aged person said smilingly. He deeply believed that Mu Shi had a bright future. Off to the side, Yan Feng dismissively twisted his mouth but did not say any words that would provoke public fury. Lin Qian's procession quickly traveled away. After fighting multiple times with this Yao military troop, they had sustained fatalities and injuries on both sides. Lin Qian's expression was as clear as water, calm and steady. No hint of hurry was shown. The Xianxia that accompanied him were well trained and disciplined. No one spoke extraneously. Xian Kong realm. The sound of bells echoed among the mountain range. A nondescript little temple was settled amongst the peaks. The yellow temple walls were covered in creeping vines, and were topped with gray-green terracotta shingles. There were many stone statues of lifelike Buddhas placed inside the temples. A small rainstorm had just passed, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of green grass. The rain remaining on the shingles flowed following the eaves like pearls off a broken string. As they hit the puddles on the stones, ding ding dong dong, the sound was very pleasing to hear. 2 Diana Xiao were sitting in the main hall of the little temple. "Xixiang, I'm afraid I will have difficulty getting time to come visit Xixiang during this trip." The young Diana Xiao was reluctant to leave. He was wearing blue monk robes. His features were handsome, untouched by mortal matters. A faint layer of light glistened over the pair of eyes. He looked to be about 20 years old, a kind of stillness within his handsomeness. Kneeling on the meditation mat, one could still feel his high spirits. The older Diana Xiao smiled warmly and said, "It's good for you to go, you will return in the end." The faint yellow monk robe that he wore had been washed for innumerable times. The color was already faded and patchwork mending could be seen to dot the robe. There were no signs of Ling power anywhere on his body. He was not any different than a normal person. I've already ordered the people below to deliver each month's allowance on schedule, the young Diana Xiao said in a light voice. I'll return very soon. Xixiang waved his hand and smiled lightly. He said, you know that I do not need these material items. That is not all right. The spine of the young Diana Xiao straightened and he said seriously, Xixiang needs to promise me to take care of yourself. Only then can I feel safe leaving. There are still some more ling grasses needed for the 9 song dan. I can go and thoroughly search when I leave this time. When the 9 song dan is made, Xixiang's cultivation will recover. Let's see who dares to harass Xixiang then. When he got to the end, a thread of violence flashed through his eyes. Shitty, you have to avoid corruption, the yellow-robed Diana Xiao said lightly. Xixiang is right to lecture me. The young Diana Xiao lowered his head and hurried to admit his wrongs. Even if you are out, do not slack in training your samadhi. Yes. Yi Zheng looked back at the little temple at the back of the mountain, leapt up and disappeared into the sky. He hadn't flown for a long time before he encountered some people. When he saw the people clearly, Yi Zheng's brows couldn't help but slightly furrow. The others quickly noticed Yi Zheng as well, and slowed down their flight speed. I heard that Shitty is going on a long trip, congratulations, congratulations. The person coming smiled as he bowed with folded hands. Yi Zheng calmly returned the greeting, it is due to the protection and love from all the Xixiang. The two sides chatted a bit more, and then left after detecting that the other had no intentions of talking more. Yi Zheng's mood hadn't been good to start with, and his mood now was even worse. This group of people were the disciples of Cui Shishu's branch. The sect was prosperous right now. The number of disciples had increased, and the number of conflicts and inner struggles had grown. Yi Zheng's master had left on a mission and never returned. Xixiang had raised him alone. Xixiang was very talented, and ranked within the top 10 of this generation. All the elders of the sect thought he had a good future. Unexpectedly, Xixiang was heavily wounded during a mission. Even though his life had been saved, but his cultivation became non-existent. Starting from that point on their branch declined even further. Xixiang came to Little Stone Buddha Temple to recuperate. Yi Zheng had been 13 then, and had worked even harder after that. Fortunately, while Xixiang's cultivation had disappeared, he could still guide Yi Zheng's cultivation. In the last Dhyana exam, he had claimed the 15th rank and re-entered the eyes of the sect elders to take on this mission. The rule of the sect was that each disciple had a monthly allowance, but this allowance was just enough for daily cultivation needs. The other disciples received gifts from their masters, but Yi Zheng could only rely on other avenues such as teaching lower disciples on cultivation. That was his primary source of income. The sect was still generous to its disciples, and the payment of every mission was very generous. However, there were many geniuses in the sect, and the competition for missions was the fiercest. In the past, he did not have the power to compete. Until now. After some preparations, he decided to leave the mountain. He had already memorized the contents of the mission. During his flight, he started to think. The mission this time was not complex. One of the smaller subordinate sects found a very deep and strange hole. Bloody light roiled in the deep hole. None of the people that went in had come out. What he needed to do was to investigate and see what the situation inside was like. Then he would have to report back to the sect. After flying for more than 10 days, he finally arrived at the sect of the incident, One Light Sect. Ma Fan still had not regained consciousness when Zhua Mo was pulled back into vast water-clear skies by Pu Yao. Pu, what connection does that Wisteria clan of the South Sky have with you? Zhua Mo asked. He could see that Pu Yao cared for Nan Yu. With this guy's frugal personality, having him proactively passing on Yao arts was akin to the sun rising from the west. Zhua Mo also saw that Pu Yao didn't just intend to pass South Sky arrow art to Nan Yu. The descendants of old friends, Pu Yao said faintly. Pu Yao's answer provided the speculations Wang had. He then asked curiously, what Yao art is. South sky arrow art. A Yao art using arrows. A very strong Yao art. Pu Yao's answer seemed to avoid the point, but Wang pondered it. A Yao art that Pu Yao called strong, then it really was powerful. Just as Wang's gossiping soul was stirred by Pu Yao's scarce words and he was preparing to delve into this mystery, Nan Yu came. Nan Yu respectfully bowed to Wang Darren. She had shone in the spotlight in the last house exam and shocked all members of the house. Her status in the house had rocketed, and several teachers had come over requesting to take her as a student. However, she had refused all of them respectfully. She had not learned any profound Yao arts, but Darren's teachings had opened a completely new world to her. She believed that even if there really was no South Sky Arrow art, she would still find a path. It was the understanding she had gained during this past while that had caused her to become even more respectful towards Wang. Darren's strength was even more profound. In her eyes, there was a large chasm between the teachers of the house compared to Darren. "Oh, you're here," Wang pretentiously responded and then asked, "Do you have any questions? If you have them, then ask." Nan Yu suppressed the excitement inside, and raised up all the problems she had encountered and thought about in the recent days. Because they were all about little Yao arts, Wang did not slack off and tried to answer them by himself rather than throw the questions to Pu Yao. Wang had been with Pu Yao for a long time, and through listening and watching, the Yao art theory that he had come into contact with was much more profound than Nan Yu. Due to this, the perspective from which he approached at the questions was a few fractions deeper than Nan Yu. Nan Yu's eyes lit up upon hearing the explanations and continuously nodded her head. For Wang, this was also a significant test. There were two questions that Nan Yu raised which he had not thought about, and greatly affected him. After all the questions were resolved, Nan Yu smiled happily. Wang's head was covered with sweat as he released a breath. If he hadn't been able to answer a question, then it really was embarrassing. And to be embarrassed in front of a Yao, just as this nonsensical thought came into Wang's head, he suddenly heard someone shout, "Nan Yu! Nan Yu!" Wang raised his head, and saw a group of people, a group of Yao wave their hands at Nan Yu as they excitedly ran over. Embarrassing here is. Or lost person. So this is also lost person in front of a Yao, which has another meaning since Wang is a human and not a Yao. Chapter 345, The Prison Battlefield. Nan Yu hadn't expected to meet her schoolmates here, and silently thought this was a terrible situation. She discreetly looked to Darren. Inside, she secretly prayed that this incident would not infuriate Darren. This was the second time she had met Darren and she did not know what Darren's temper was like. However, she had heard that many Darren did not like their movements to be known. "Student Nan Yu, this is..." A deep and calm voice suddenly sounded out by her ears. She raised her head and felt that the situation was now even worse. This was Teacher Qi. Qi had been one of the teachers that had sought her out after the house exam and wanted to take her as a student. Qi was born from the Fire clan and was very skilled in Fire Yao arts. Among the teachers of the house, his power was enough to rank him in the top 5. Seeing so many Yao art once, Wang felt his vision was broadened. This group of Yao were of various shapes, most of which were humanoid. There were two individuals that were very eye-catching. One of them had the body like a crisp green tree. Their numerous roots were like unusually nimble feet. They seemed to have a very lively personality. The tree branches were like soft whips that waved in the air. The other one's body was made from hundreds of flowers that gathered and dispersed in the air as they changed shape. Looking like this, how was it possible to distinguish between the sexes? This slightly profound question troubled Wang. Qi's fire red hair and lion-like features were not all that attention-grabbing in this group of weirdos. However, Zuemo noticed him at first glance because he was the strongest of this group of Yao, and wasn't just marginally stronger. Hearing what Qi called Nanyu, Zuemo instantly understood Qi's identity. "Sir is Nanyu's teacher." Sorry. "I am Nanyu's cousin," Zuemo raised his folded hands and said with a smile. "Cousin?" The group's gazes swept between Nanyu and Zuemo, and their expressions instantly became suspicious. Darren's skill at lying really sucked. Nanyu felt very ashamed. From any angle, Darren showed no hint of being of the same clan as her. However, since Darren had said it, she could only force herself to say, "My distant cousin." Distant, the Yao all had understanding expressions. Such a terrible lie could only fool naive students, but how could it fool an experienced old Yao like Qi? However, since the other was not willing to state his origins, Qi did not have to pry. Everyone had secrets. "Nice to meet you." Qi politely bowed to Zuemo. Zuemo's consciousness was not as high as his, but it was above these students. Considering the other's age, he clearly had great talent. Great talent. Qi's thought moved, and he pretended to unconcernedly ask, "Which house is Sir in?" "I'm not in a Yao art house." Zuemo shook his head honestly. "Not in a Yao art house." The Yao couldn't believe these words. "Why not?" The tree Yao waved its branches. This guy looked like an outgoing one, and it quickly rushed to be the first to ask. "I'm being taught by a teacher." Zuemo's response instantly caused murmurs of admiration. Yao art houses were pretty good places for normal Yao, but students of a teacher could receive more guidance. Qi nodded his head inside. Zuemo had not lied this time. He suddenly thought of the string of little Yao arts that Nanyu had showed during the exam. Had it been this cousin of hers that had taught her? The more he thought, the more Qi found it likely. He had taught Nanyu's class before, and understood this student well. There was nothing to be said of Nanyu's dedication and work ethic, but her talent could only be considered good. The dazzling performance of her last exam really was not her style. Qi finally realized why Nanyu had refused his invitation. It must be that the teacher of her cousin had also chosen to take Nanyu on as a student. "Can I ask for the name of your teacher?" Qi asked respectfully. That glimpse of the tip of the iceberg had been enough. Those little Yao arts had shocked Qi for a long time. "Oh, he's called Pu," Zuemo's thought moved as he said. "Pu." Qi carefully searched his memory for this name but did not find anything. It didn't seem to be a very famous Yao. Nanyu wanted to roll her eyes when she heard it. Darren's skill at lying wasn't just terrible. Nanyu thought the Pu that Zuemo spoke of was just a random answer. Which Yao would be so casual with their teacher's name? As expected, the flower Yao snorted coldly. "If you don't want to say, don't say. There's no need to lie." The other Yao had expressions of agreement. Zuemo was confused, but he did not argue. He took the chance to go into the sea of consciousness and mock Pu Yao. "Pu, aren't you a sky Yao? How come no Yao knows you? You really ended up terribly." Pu Yao's expression was visibly unwell. Having gotten his face back from Pu Yao, Zuemo did not care for the cold snort of the flower Yao. Nanyu secretly glanced at Zuemo and thought inside, Darren's lying skill was somewhat terrible, but his face was thick enough. She did not think that Zuemo was lying. He had met many powerful and great Yao before, and knew many Yao had weird personalities and did not care for these things. However, he did not plan on wasting too much time on chatter. He said with a smile, "I came today to show them the prison battlefield. It is getting late, so we will bid farewell." Zuemo hurriedly bowed with his hands. Qi took the bunch of little Yao and quickly disappeared. After they went far away, Zuemo turned to ask Nanyu, "What is the prison battlefield?" Nanyu's expression instantly became slightly strange. Did Darren not know the prison battlefield? She didn't quite believe it. What, Yao didn't know the prison battlefield? However, she suppressed the suspicion inside and obediently answered, the prison battlefield is the place for real combat practice. There are many Yao formations inside which can only be solved with Yao arts. Yao formations? Zhuo Mo's eyes lit up. Just this phrase stirred great interest in him. Yao formation, true to the name, should be the formations that Yao use. Was there any differences compared to the seal formations that Xianxia used? He instantly said, "Oh, take me to see." Nanyu found it even stranger, but still said respectfully, "Yes." 12 hours was plenty of time for Zhuo Mo. He wasn't in a hurry and taught Nanyu Yao arts along the way. He explained in great detail the many variants of the little Yao arts, and along the way, explained why he had deconstructed Yao arts last time. Nanyu learned a lot, and unknowingly arrived at the prison battlefield. It was the first time she found time passed so quickly. "Darren, this is the prison battlefield." Zhuo Mo curiously examined the prison battlefield. After the first glance, he couldn't move his eyes away. Countless curved streams and rivers crisscrossed and passed through the void like glowing pipes. Some of these water flows were slow, some soft, some flowed against the current, and there were all kinds of weird ones. Among the river flows, there were some that had all kinds of strange water grasses growing in them and others had multicolored fish that swam within. Zhuo Mo's eyes landed on an enormous fish that was 30 zhang in size that occasionally opened its gigantic mouth. Zhuo Mo's heart tightened as he looked at it. Other than the river flows, the other places were all filled with other things like lightning balls, and clouds of fire which could be seen everywhere. Such powerful Yao formations. After looking closely, Zhuo Mo felt dizzy and shocked. No matter if it was the river flows, the water grasses, the fish, the lightning balls or the clouds of fire, they were all part of the bigger formation. One move against them would affect the entire entity. This was a living, great formation. Any change of one part of the formation would cause a change in the entire formation. After observing for a long time, he turned and asked Nanyu, "How do you play?" "Play?" Nanyu stumbled over Zhuo Mo's strange way of asking. She could only say, "Just go in." There are 3 levels to the Clear Skies prison battlefield. If you can enter the innermost level, you can enter the second prison. The second prison? Zhuo Mo was yearning to try. Were there 10 levels in 10-finger prison? He was already so amazed at the first prison. What was the second prison like? "Come, let's go try it out." Finishing, he pulled Nanyu and charged in. Nanyu hadn't expected Darren to charge when he said so. She saw how excited Darren appeared. Had Darren really never came before? Thinking to that, she couldn't help but hurriedly remind him, "Darren, if you fail, it may wound the consciousness." "No problem." Before Darren's words landed, Nanyu felt the scenery in front change and become bright red. Not good, a fire cloud. Her expression changed drastically. In the prison battlefield, the Yao arts that she was most afraid of were those like the fire cloud. A dragon made out of fire seemed to smell them and with a burning presence, leapt over. Interesting. Darren's voice came over from the side. She finally remembered that Darren was beside her, and her heart instantly was greatly reassured. Zhuo Mo really felt it was interesting. This fire dragon was made from 7 interlocking fire Yao arts and was very clever. The 7 fire Yao arts were all little Yao arts, and were not complex Yao arts. What it tested was the reaction abilities of those trying to go through the prison. There were many ways of dealing with the fire dragon. Zhuo Mo chose the simplest one. Little Yao art, water blade. A transparent water blade entered the center of the fire dragon boom. The fire dragon instantly turned to 7 balls of fire and exploded. Nanyu's eyeballs almost dropped out. She had clearly seen the little Yao art that Darren had just casted. She was able to generally estimate the power of the fire dragon from its presence. She did not doubt that Darren could overcome this fire dragon. But it was only a water blade. There wasn't any difference compared to the water blade she could cast. How was it possible? How was it possible? She looked dazedly as the balls of fire flew. Xuemo noticed Nan Yu's expression and recalled that he had this follower. He explained, "You have to look at the structure of the fire dragon. It was made from 7 interlocking fire Yao arts. If you can find the crux of this kind of Yao art, it really saves energy." There wasn't time to say more. A lightning arrow shot in front of Xuemo unhurriedly raised a finger, and a transparent water ball appeared in front of him. Little Yao art, water ball. The lightning entered the water ball. Countless arcs of electricity sparked and crackled on the surface of the water ball. There is no trick to this. Just respond quickly. Xuemo flicked the water ball covered in layers of electricity and said sedately. When casting little Yao arts, the most basic point is speed. Before his words landed, countless water grasses in the surroundings suddenly and violently headed over. Xuemo flipped his hand and a fire dragon that was just the same as the one before swam around the two of them. Everywhere it passed, the water grasses turned to dust. You have to learn and use. He appeared to have the mannerisms of a master, and was very composed. He enjoyed Nan Yu's awestruck gaze, and his ego was very satisfied. What Xuemo did not know that his 3 continuous attacks seemed to rouse the silent prison battlefield out of its slumber. Chapter 346, The Prison-Breaking Battle. Nan Yu's cousin really looks weird. The tree Yao waved its branches and spouted words like a spring spouting water. Doesn't look anything like Nan Yu. From a glance, you can see he isn't a good Yao. How can Nan Yu have a cousin like this? It really is strange. A cold snort came from the ball of flowers floating in the air. Shut up. Don't you find it strange? The tree Yao was slightly puzzled. How can you not find such a strange matter strange? Don't you find it strange? Chi felt a headache and shouted lowly, "Shut up." The tree Yao's words stopped. He obediently closed his mouth. He didn't dare to disregard teacher's words. After being silent for a moment, he really couldn't stop himself and murmured, "Teacher, don't you find it strange?" Everyone wanted to faint. Chi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The tree Yao was the descendant of one of his friends. If he had the chance, he would always take the tree Yao along. But this guy was a chatterbox, and had really strong sense of curiosity. If he was attracted by something, he definitely would not let it be. The prison battlefield is up ahead. Chi's topic changed as he pointed at the front to try to deflect this guy's attention. As expected, the tree Yao's attention turned to the prison battlefield. So this is the prison battlefield. The other Yao didn't feel much. Several of the Yao in this group had already gone through the prison battlefield already. After entering vast water-clear skies, many people would give it a try. Even if they didn't have the strength, they wouldn't actually lose their lives in the prison battlefield, they would only be minorly wounded. If they were lucky, not even a hair would be damaged. Little Yao with guts liked to explore the prison battlefield. The Yao arts in the prison battlefield were a few fractions stronger than what was in other areas, and were suited for real combat. Also, if they wanted to enter the next prison, they must go through the prison battlefield. Go, let's go in. Chi saw the tree Yao was attracted to the prison battlefield and released a breath. He hurriedly took the Yao in. Entering the prison battlefield, the scenery instantly changed. The tree Yao waved its branches and said emotionally, "It is such a strange place," but no one paid attention to him at this time. The other Yao had come to the prison battlefield before and their nerves tensed. Teacher Chi was beside them, but he was responsible for teaching and guidance. Of course, in moments of danger, he would act and protect them. However, they all still hoped to become Teacher Chi's student, and naturally did not slack off. All of them paid attention as they started to defend. Due to their high numbers, the pressure was much less, and they appeared to be at ease. "All of you, spread out," Qi said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the Yao instantly spread out, and entered their own battle modes. The prison battlefield was a place to practice for real combat. In here, slacking off and shortcuts gave no benefits. Yao arts successively came at them. All the Yao were 120% alert as they carefully responded. The fire dragon is a commonly used fire Yao art, and has pretty good powerful. It will be suitable for your use for a long time. The most important place of this kind of fire Yao art is its structure. Different structures will form different fire dragons. Like this fire dragon, it is made from 6 different little Yao arts. Oh, not a bad combination. Qi casually stopped a fire dragon, and reviewed it calmly. It needs you to be very familiar with little Yao arts. Nan Yu is very outstanding on this point. You need to learn from her. When the other Yao heard this, they worked even harder. Clearly, Qi's praise of Nan Yu motivated them. Do not copy these Yao arts. Suo Mo's words shocked Nan Yu. She couldn't help but say, why not? Aren't these Yao arts good? 3 lights flew out of Suo Mo's hand like 3 sharp sword energies. They entered a mountain-like lightning cloud. In the blink of an eye, the lightning cloud brimming with astonishing primary lightning was like a bubble that popped and disappeared. Nan Yu's eyes almost fell out as she watched. Yao arts are full of innumerable transformations. There are 500 kinds of the most basic little Yao arts. This is unique among all cultivation methods. How many Yao arts are there now? No one, no Yao knows. But in vast water clear skies, there is no less than 10,000 kinds. If you just copy, you will forever be led by the nose by other people, and be exhausted by the pursuit. It is very simple, you will never finish learning. It was the first time that Nan Yu heard such a daring way of thinking. She listened extremely carefully and was afraid of missing a word. We will not copy them, we will deconstruct them. Suo Mo's tone was faint and his attitude calm. With the flick of a finger, the Yao art heading towards him turned to dust as though it was an example of his perspective. The number of Yao art permutations is innumerable, but there are patterns to be found. What we need to do is to find their patterns. When we find their patterns, you will be able to create Yao arts that belong to you. And how do we grasp the patterns hidden behind the multitude of variations of Yao arts? Deconstruction. Nan Yu blurted out. Right, how did it go? The person that understands you the best will forever be your enemy and not your friend. This phrase also works with Yao arts. Oh, we need to first be the enemy of the Yao arts. Nan Yu understands. Nan Yu felt like she was filled with awareness, her face flashing with light. There had never been a moment like this when she was so aware that she had clearly grabbed the pulse of destiny. The respect and awe in Nan Yu's eyes made Suo Mo feel as pleasurable as though he was in a hot spring. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao couldn't help but mock, you're pretty good at learning and selling at the same time. But he clearly underestimated the thickness of Suo Mo's face. This guy snickered and said proudly, right, I feel the same. Pu Yao finally remembered little Moge was someone that could tolerate everything. Talking about face with him was never as good as talking about Jingshi. His happy mood assisted Suo Mo's performance. His hands flew and streamed. No matter how powerful the Yao art was, none of them could get within 30 zhang of him. Just as Suo Mo was having fun playing, the surroundings suddenly became silent. All the Yao arts seemed to have disappeared. Silence, a deathly silence. All the river flows became silent. Suo Mo's hairs on end. The sudden stop of the prison battlefield bewildered Qi's students who stared at each other. Qi made a light sound and his eyes brightened as they widened. Prison-breaking battle. You guys will get a great spectacle today. Prison-breaking battle, all the students exclaimed in shock. Prison-breaking. Most of the Yao who entered the 10-finger prison had heard of it. But most only heard of it. It was more like a legend. Prison-breaking battle. It referred to the prison battlefield that had detected an enemy that could pose a threat to it. It would then use the power of the entire prison battlefield to deal with the enemy. Prison-breaking battle, creation after destruction. If a Yao won this ferocious prison-breaking battle, vast water clear skies would be reconstructed. Vast water clear skies had been created 300 years ago when a great Yao skilled in water Yao arts had completed the first prison's prison-breaking battle. Those that could break the prison had a certain connection to power, but that was not the definite trigger. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so many powerful great Yao that went through vast water clear skies without activating the prison-breaking battle. Today, someone had activated the prison-breaking battle. Exclamations of shock sounded in the prison battlefield. They all understood what the unusual scene in front of them meant. The news that the prison-breaking battle was activated spread with astounding speed. Every Yao in vast water clear skies was disturbed. Like a tide, they flooded towards the prison battlefield. At the same time in the second prison that was neighboring to the first prison, many Yao raised their heads with shocked expressions. Immediately after, numerous figures flashed towards the door of the prison with astounding speed. Prison-breaking battle. The prison-breaking battle that had not appeared for 300 years. Darren, Nan Yu's voice was shaky. She looked with fear at the deathly silent prison battlefield. You have to remember not to lose your calm at any time. The more you panic, the quicker you die on the battlefield. Darren's words caused shame to appear on Nan Yu's face. Yes. If she was so timid, how could she follow Darren in the future? The terror inside decreased greatly. She raised her small face with a determined expression. What she didn't know was that Suomo's entire scalp was prickling at this moment. He had rich battle experience. Even though the surroundings were silent and motionless, but the dangerous presence was rising. Pu, what is happening? He carefully asked Pu Yao. Pu Yao narrowed his blood-red eye, and lightly said, there's only this much stuff in the prison battlefield, what situation can happen? There really isn't anything. Suomo didn't quite believe it. Pu Yao's face was mocking. This is just the first prison. Hearing this, Suomo changed his thinking. That was right, vast water clear skies was only the first prison of the 10-finger prison. If it really was so dangerous, there wouldn't be so many people. He hadn't done anything. If something unfortunate happened, it wouldn't be his turn. Comforting himself so, his heart was reassured. Before the stone in his heart landed, a strange power passed over, and Nan Yu disappeared from beside him. All the other Yao in the entire prison battlefield except for Suomo were sent by this mysterious power out of the prison battlefield. Many of the Yao that were transported out had confused expressions, but when they saw the area surrounding the prison battlefield was filled with Yao, they all shook. But right now, no Yao paid attention to them. Everyone's gaze was staring into the prison battlefield. The rivers that followed constantly through the void of the prison battlefield, the lightning balls, the fire clouds, they had all disappeared. They could clearly see that figure that was at the very center of the prison battlefield. All the Yao widened their eyes. A Yao that could activate the prison-breaking battle definitely had a limitless future. Qi and his procession of Yao stared so much their eyes almost dropped out. The tree Yao excitedly waved the tree branches. Strange cousin. It's the strange cousin. Light flashed through Qi's eyes as waves were created inside his heart. The Yao that had activated prison-breaking battles before were all great Yao that had each left a deep mark on history. This person of average appearance was so powerful. When Nan Yu was sent out, Suomo instantly understood the situation was targeting him. Since the other had such powers, they definitely wouldn't give him the chance to leave the prison battlefield. He had been tricked. Someone dared to trick Ge. Suomo's anger rose, and his stubbornness came out. The tendons in his neck bulged. His features enraged, he pushed up his sleeves and murderously gritted his teeth as he uttered Dong Fu slang. "Come on, baby." Chapter 347, One Battle. Zhuemo was filled with battle intent, his blood boiling. His back arched forward, his hands placed in the air in front of his chest with his 10 fingers spread out like a wild beast waiting to pounce. He gave others the feeling of danger. This was the starting position of great Damo physique for physical battle which he instinctively used. The surroundings were deathly silent, and caused Zhuemo's concentration to be highly focused. He was using all of his consciousness. Recently, his consciousness had greatly advanced. He had never used so much spiritual power at once as he was doing today. The usual fishing would always wring out his spiritual power, but the expenditure of little Yao arts was very low, so the process had been a drain of small increments. The movement this time was without keeping anything back, and he was going all in. The lively spiritual power wrapped around his body. Everything in the surroundings was quickly drawn out in his mind, and was as clear as it was a mirror image. The temperature of the surroundings rose, and the heated air grew heavy. The dark and deep void started to light up, and the surroundings turned crimson red. Zhuemo was motionless. His eyes narrowed, the presence of his entire body was quietly restrained inside. He was like a statue. How many has it been years since someone activated a prison-breaking battle? He doesn't look very good, really a monster. Leng Yu said emotionally to his good friend Changzheng. The two of them had charged from the second prison to vast water-clear skies. Before they even took a breath, they saw Zhuemo standing alone in the prison battlefield. Leng Yu wore a black silk robe, the sleeves of which were woven with gold silk into complex patterns. His figure was upright and handsome. He was from a famous family, and was usually very lofty. Pride and condescension had already deeply entered his bones. However, he was not stupid. Facing the monster that was in the prison battlefield right now, he had no assets to be proud of. Individuals that could activate the prison-breaking battle were all monsters that stood above all monsters. If they could continue being monsters, after 1 or 2 centuries, they would even have the qualifications to enter the Council of Elders. Changzheng stared unblinkingly, and sked in wonder. As expected, a monster. I cannot even feel his presence. Just this method of concealment is nothing our generation can do. He then said suspiciously, but this position, why does it look like Mo's skill? Leng Yu was from a famed family and naturally knew more. He examined for a long time before he nodded. It is a Mo skill. Cultivating Yama together. That is ridiculous. Changzheng's face was full of disbelief. Leng Yu was also filled with doubt. He did not dare to make a conclusion, and could only say, "We'll know later." The two Yao stared unblinkingly at the prison battlefield. They had gone through vast water-clear skies battlefield in the past. With their power, they naturally had not had a hard time. They were very curious. Was the legendary prison-breaking battle really that powerful? At this time, the prison battlefield started its first wave of attack. The red light seemed to be pulled by an invisible power. They came from all directions, drawing out lines of dazzling red light as they gathered into a red mark with astounding speed. The red mark of light dramatically expanded. An enormous ball of fire instantly floated about 100 zhang from where Zhuemo was. The crimson-red flames continuously spat its fiery tongues. Rich fire elemental power spread following the waves of heat. Zhuemo felt he was situated in a large Dan cauldron, and it was hard to endure the baking. The eye-catching red light, the meteor-like red energy, the burning ball of fire, the flickering tongues of flames, they all caused the Yao looking in from the outside to have expressions of praise. Xian Lu Darren of Peerless Water Yao Arts, I hadn't expected his fire Yao Arts to be so domineering. Changzheng's expression was full of admiration. Leng Yu also had a face full of respect, and said, supposedly, Qian Lu Darren was only 28 when he broke the prison and remade it into vast water-clear skies. It really is worthy of respect and terrifying that he could set down the name of a prison when he was 28. Ah, if there wasn't someone having a prison-breaking battle now, we would not have the good fortune to watch. Chang Jing suddenly smiled and said, I wonder what Qian Lu Darren would think if he knew his vast water-clear skies is being challenged. The enormous ball of fire burned and spread a scorching presence. The fire element power that was able to wound the mind splashed in waves against everything in the surroundings. Zhuo Mo's figure under the fireball was as minuscule as an ant. He seems to have confidence, Leng Yu suddenly said. Of course. Those who are average cannot activate the prison-breaking battle. Chang Zheng had a matter-of-fact expression, but then his tone changed. However, the fire Yao arts left by Qian Lu Darren's impression in the 10-finger prison is not so easy to deal with. Who are you helping? That's like not saying anything at all. Leng Yu rolled his eyes. We're here to see the spectacle, the spectacle. Chang Zheng laughed awkwardly. The two spoke quickly, but their eyes were unmoving as they locked onto Zhuo Mo in the field. Zhuo Mo narrowed his eyes and only showed a narrow crack. No one could see that there seemed to be a cold and eerie fire burning soundlessly in the depths of his eyes. The open arms, the spread fingers, the slightly curved figure, they all give the Yao a feeling that he was planning to hug this fatal and tyrannical ball of fire. Zhuo Mo was not nervous at all. The burning and fatal presence given off by the enormous ball of fire in front of him did not cause any ripple in his heart. Of the 5 elements, the fire element was his most familiar element after water. From the firstly water sword scripture, to the golden crow fire after that, he was an expert at playing with fire. The fireball in front of him was somewhat similar to the fireball that Pu Yao had once demonstrated to him. In the beginning, Zhuo Mo had encountered difficulties when he was comprehending the Li water sword scripture. When Pu Yao taught him, he had also created an enormous ball of fire. This familiar scene made his mind go slightly astray, but it was only a sliver. His body naturally entered battle mode. He no longer was that inexperienced Wukong sword sect disciple. After so many battles, he sensitively caught the opportunity. He attacked first. In the void, he stepped forward and then disappeared from the view of the Yao. The strange step stirred exclamations of shock. What the Yao were even more shocked about was his action. To charge straight at the ball of fire, wasn't that just going to find death? This fireball was formed from almost all the power of the entire prison battlefield. The fire element power contained within it reached a terrifying level. If he was touched by any of the streaks of flame, he most likely would not be able to retreat with his body intact. The fireball seemed to felt the threat. The tongues of flame rose, and crimson-red whips of fire shot at Zhuo Mo. In the void, the fire element power reached a horrifying level. Sweat rolled down Qi's forehead. The density of fire element power in the prison battlefield made him, someone skilled in fire Yao arts, feel his heart speed up. Zhuo Mo stepped out of the void, his steps not slowing. He stepped forward and seemed to step into the void again. Without knowing it, a faint layer of gold covered his legs. The bursting tongues of fire furiously leapt at Zhuo Mo, and he was almost struck a few times. There was only the difference of a few hairs. Such a risky scene made Nan Yu's face pale and she almost shouted a few times. Zhuo Mo's expression was indifferent as though he did not detect the danger. His steps were like a stroll, at ease and calm. The crowd of Yao watching did not lack those who had knowledge. Their expressions changed. None of them had seen such a strange walk before. Leng Yu and Chang Jing felt their bodies freeze as their eyes shock. As all the Yao were shocked by Zhuo Mo's steps, no one noticed layer of faint light on Zhuo Mo's hands. With each step, the light on Zhuo Mo's hand would become slightly brighter. When Zhuo Mo made his 12th step, the light on his 2 hands was so thick it was almost tangible and could flow like liquid. What was this? The Yao's eyes were unconsciously attracted to the light covering both of Zhuo Mo's hands. They were filled with curiosity. Everyone knew this was Zhuo Mo's killing move. No matter how profound his steps were, they could not defeat the fireball. He still needed to rely on an offensive Yao art. The multicolored light created multicolored afterimages during Zhuo Mo's high-speed movement. As Zhuo Mo flickered in and out, it became broken sections of a rainbow. Killing move. It definitely was a great killing move. Everyone widened their eyes and didn't dare to blink. Nan Yu suddenly covered her mouth and muffled the shout that had reached her mouth. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Heavens, how was it possible? That was. Zhuo Mo's mind was almost icy cold, as he made another step, as he went closer to the fireball, continued to rise in temperature. His presence continuously grew with his steps. His figure slightly paused as it went against how people normally moved. 30 zhang away, the domineering and scorching heat hit his body as though it was incinerating him. He crouched down slightly and both of his hands dropped to his side. The slightly lowered eyelids were completely open now, revealing the calmness in the depths of his eyes. It was like cold butter thrown into the fire. The flame exploded. The boiling battle intent burned every one of Zhuo Mo's nerves. All the tongues of fire of the fireball flooded towards Zhuo Mo, the fire twisted into a burning sea. The continuously rising presence reached a peak. He suddenly raised his face. Kill. The rampaging and violent killing essence suddenly shot outwards with Zhuo Mo as the center. Zhuo Mo jumped up into the air like a flying sword leaving its sheath. Carrying a patch of multicolored light, he struck towards the sea of flame in front of him. Among the sea of flames that covered the sky, a multicolored smear carved out a straight and blinding line, causing sparks to fly like the rain. Among the sparks, the multicolored light struck the ball of fire. All of the domineering and explosive presence, all of the battle intent, it all seemed to enter the ball of fire along with this blow. The prison battlefield paused. Everything paused. Time seemed to have stopped. Pia. A sound like an eggshell being cracked. The domineering and terrifying crimson-red ball lightly exploded and turned to a handful of sparks. The sparks were like rain and mist as they fell. Zhuo Mo's figure floated in and out of view. The presence on his body disappeared, the multicolored light on his hands also disappeared. Silence, deathly silence. For 10 whole breaths, no one made any sound. Only 10 breaths later did the Yao seem to suddenly wake up. Exclamation rose and fell. Who saw what Yao art that was? Too powerful. Haven't seen it before. Definitely a secret Yao art. Such a weirdo. I wonder which hidden family he came from. Worth it. Didn't come for nothing. It is so worth it. None of the Yao in the surroundings could keep their calm. The crowd was very excited. Among the Yao, Nan Yu tightly covered her mouth. There was only one thought repeating in her mind. That was. The discussion in the surroundings seemed to be far away to her ears. No one could have thought that among all of these many Yao, only she understood that move. That was, Little Yao Arts. Chapter 348, Scheming Little Yao Art, a 16 Little Yao Art combination. The rainbow-colored light lingered in Nan Yu's pupils. She had almost stopped breathing. 16 kinds of Little Yao Art versus the Fire Yao Art of Qian Lu Darren. The difference between the two was like comparing a child and a battle-hardened warrior. Standing aloofly among the rain of light, there was no joy on Zhuo Mo's face, nor smugness. Nan Yu suddenly felt that Darren had a great presence. Ling Yu and Chang Zhengs were shocked, but the shock quickly turned to extreme passion and excitement. No one knew what Qian Lu Darren's Fire Yao art was called, but no one cared at this moment. Clear Skies Qian Lu was a name that was legendary for the Yao. They had not personally seen how Qian Lu Darren completed the prison-breaking battle 300 years ago, how he had reformed vast water clear skies, they could only imagine from hearing the tales and histories. Yet today, another Yao had activated the prison-breaking battle. A new legend was being created in front of them. Zhuo Mo's grand and dazzling lights and the fierce combat in the battle just now made every Yao present feel their blood boil. A new legend was going to begin. Even if this Yao of unknown origins was so young that it was almost outrageous, no one doubted his power at this time. Do you recognize his movement technique? Chang Zheng impatiently asked. Leng Yu's eyes and knowledge were just a bit higher than his. Leng Yu's face was serious. It's a bit like nether stepping movement art, but his feet have a golden aura. This does not match the records of nether stepping movement art. It is very strange. It must be another high-level Yao art. The organization of Yao arts was chaotic and complex because too many kinds of Yao arts existed throughout history. Additionally, after the Thousand-Year War, Yao arts gradually entered a phase of rapid development. All kinds of novel and wondrous Yao arts appeared, and this also became a huge problem for the ranking system of Yao arts. As the large Yao art houses developed, the house-taught Yao arts gradually replaced the clan-taught Yao arts. Due to this, the Yao art rankings finally settled. From the most basic little Yao arts, to low-level Yao arts, to intermediate-level Yao arts, to the astonishing high-level Yao arts, to the even stronger earth-level Yao arts, and then to the sky-level Yao arts. This complete Yao art system was constructed. This system had an extremely strict division. It wasn't just based on the power of the Yao arts but included such things as the difficulty of casting, and the amount of spiritual power used. There was a special bureaucracy whose purpose was to judge the levels of Yao arts. Chang Zheng's expression was solemn. Can you guess which Yao art house it is from? Can't see it. The use of clan-taught Yao arts had declined. Even the young Yao that came from the large clans mostly chose to enter a Yao art house to learn. The famed clan Yao arts of the past had been gradually merged into the Yao arts of the various Yao art houses, and became the ultimate skill of those houses. Sky-level arts mostly existed in the legends. Almost all the experts, including all of the Sky Yao, had died in the great battle thousands of years ago. The earth-level and sky-level Yao arts they knew were lost in the rivers of history. What the largest Yao art houses competed with were the high-level Yao arts. These were the trademark arts of each Yao art house. There were similarities between the basic and intermediate Yao arts between some Yao art houses, but it was rare that high-level Yao arts were the same between houses. Each Yao art house was extremely careful when passing down their house's high-level Yao art. Only the most accomplished and core disciples had the qualifications to learn. This kind of level is probably also the peak if it's in the Great 10. Chang Zheng threw his confusion to the back of his mind and praised. Leng Yu asked in response, Great 10. These 300 years, how come not even one of the students of the Great 10 activated the prison-breaking battle? True, Chang Zheng nodded his head, this Yao art house is going to be famous. It may even enter the Great 10. This guy may not be from a Yao art house. Leng Yu's words were shocking. Not from a Yao art house. Chang Zheng turned his face in shock. You mean that he's using clan-taught Yao arts? Maybe. Leng Yu's gaze focused. Look at his battle method. Does he look like one from a Yao art house? Chang Zheng pondered this and an expression of agreement grew. Since you mentioned it, I also had this feeling. It doesn't seem like the stuff from Yao art houses. He responded very quickly and said with a smile, I wonder which Yao art house will benefit this time. Clan-taught Yao arts like this were what the large Yao art houses desired the most. In the Great War thousands of years ago, the Yaoma had lost and greatly suffered. Countless kinds of knowledge had been lost. The lost knowledge had formed through countless years, and represented the highest level of Yao arts. They were the brightest pearl of the entire Yao art system. The Yao arts that were developed after the war had developed mostly from the remaining basic Yao arts and intermediate Yao arts. That was the origins of most high-level Yao arts. But higher ranks? The legendary earth and sky level? A few thousand of years was too short for them to be redeveloped. Other than the top Yao art houses, the great majority of Yao art houses only had high-level Yao arts. The Yao art houses that possessed earth and sky level Yao arts had not gained them through their own power, but were just luckier. The clan-taught Yao arts of the past were the best part of the ancient Yao arts. If they could regain these clan-taught Yao arts, it would be of great help in understanding higher-level Yao arts. Of course, there were differences between clan-taught Yao arts. What they needed the most were those outstanding clan-taught Yao arts. If this Yao really was using clan-taught Yao arts, he was a tasty morsel for any Yao art house. Nether stepping movement art was a high-level Yao art and one of the trademark arts of the Dragon River Yao art house. The amazing scene just now, in Lang Yu's perspective, this movement art was not worse than the nether stepping movement art of the legend. Even he couldn't help start scheming. Behind the back of each Yao art house was the shadow of some large clans. When the Thousand-Year War had just finished, due to the fact that the peak and high-level individuals of each clan had been lost in high levels, it led to the loss of large amounts of Yao arts. Many clans encountered difficulties in their cultivation paths, and lacking guidance, they had to openly discuss and study with other clans. This marked the rise of the Yao art houses. As the Council of Elders supported and administered it, the Yao art houses became even more popular. Now, a Yao art house was like a rope that tied several, or even a dozen, clans together to become a singular being with a common purpose. This was also why the clans were willing to share their clan Yao arts. In the Ice Day Yao art house that Lang Yu attended, the Western Mountain Cold clan occupied a seat on the Council of Elders of the Yao art house. If he could recruit this Yao into the Ice Day Yao art house, then he would have contributed greatly. He wouldn't just be able to receive the top art of the house, Cold Day Ice Art, but maybe his clan would get another C on the art house's Council of Elders. Even though Lang Yu was usually proud and cold, his breathing sped up when he thought about it. He wrung out his mind thinking of what conditions he could use to persuade the other. He felt lucky about this prison-breaking battle occurred in the first prison. Otherwise, even thinking about recruitment was a delusion. At his side, Chang Zheng looked with shock at his good friend. But then he thought and understood. However, he did not think well of Lang Yu's plan. In his view, those that could activate the prison-breaking battles were the top geniuses of each era. The two of them could see this, would the other Yao art houses not? In terms of competitive power, how could Ice Day Yao art house compare to those top Yao art houses? His gaze swept around, and found that there were more Yao around now than before. He was very calm. He wasn't from a large clan, just a normal student. Light continuously flashed. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with Yao. This was really a spectacle. Chang Zheng thought inside. Nan Yu was still immersed in the grand battle and did not notice Teacher Qi drift next to her. Seeing this, Qi could only cough. The startled Nan Yu noticed Teacher Qi, and hurriedly bowed. Teacher Qi, oh, Nan Yu. Qi's masculine face was filled by a smile, and he said intimately, the role of the chief student elder in the school is empty. Are you interested? You are very young, and it is rare for you to have the strength you do now. With great power, you have to be brave and take on responsibilities. Nan Yu stilled where she stood. Chief student elder meant being the elder of all the students. This was a role that every student dreamed about. The chief student elder could receive the guidance of all the elders in the entire council of elders of the Yao Art House. When they graduated, they could enter the Yao Art House and take on a core role. Even though they were students, their status would be much higher than normal teachers. This role was far too important, so in the last 7 years, the Purple Lotus Yao art house that Nan Yu was in had kept its chief student elder position empty. Now teacher Qi was telling her she could be chief student elder. She felt she was dreaming. Taking a few deep breaths, Nan Yu tried to calm the excitement inside. This world changed so quickly. A few days ago, she was working to become a student of a teacher. Now, the position of chief student elder was being offered to her. All of this was so fantastical, and unrealistic. But Nan Yu quickly calmed down. Her experiences of hardship caused her to understand worldly matters better than normal students. The calm Nan Yu did not need to waste much effort to understand teacher Qi's motivations. Looking at the calm Nan Yu, Qi was slightly shocked. For the first time, he properly looked at this student that didn't have outstanding talent. To be able to maintain calmness in the face of such a great temptation, she wasn't average. Maybe he had missed a good seed. Regret flashed through Qi's mind, but that dot of regret quickly disappeared. The role of chief student elder was far above anything he could promise. However, he was also very clear if they wanted to compete for the mysterious male Yao in the prison battlefield, the only advantage the Purple Lotus Yao art house had was Nan Yu. Compared to an expert that could activate a prison-breaking battle, a position of chief student elder really was not anything. He believed those cunning and slippery elders of the house would see this clearly. If he could help bring this matter to a favorable conclusion, would his efforts be unrecognized? He looked with burning eyes at Nan Yu. Chapter 349, Rage. Nan Yu shook her head and said, I need to first ask cousin's opinion. Qi knew his intentions had been seen. His old face reddened slightly, but it quickly turned back. Of course, of course. The tree Yao, the flower Yao and the other students looked from a distance as Qi talked with enthusiasm on his face, and all of them were shocked without an exception. The sparks fell like rain. Zuo widened his eyes as he warily observed the surroundings. The scenery in the surroundings had not changed, but the feeling of danger did not lessen, but had become even more oppressing. Had that just been a warm-up? Zuo felt no fear. Just the opposite, an excited battle desire filled his body. He wanted the upcoming fight to be even fiercer. The exquisite 16 little Yao art combination had dismembered the other's fireball in an instant. What really excited him was that he had actually used one of the transformations of the great Daimo physique, light void wings, in his crisis. What, light void wings, strengthened with speed, to become as fast as lightning. It was the first transformation Zuo learned. When he had used it just now, he had a great idea. He suppressed the formation of the pair of golden wings, and diverted the power to his legs. It actually produced the effect of stepping through the void. So, light void wings, could be used like this. Zuo suddenly felt there was light, and was greatly inspired. Since the power of the light void wings could be pushed to his legs, what would happen if he pushed it to his arms? Or any other place? He was even considering, could the other transformations be used like this? He was yearning to try and filled with the intent to battle. He had really made a profit today. What he did not know was that Pu Yao's eyes almost dropped to the floor in his sea of consciousness. In his view, the new change of the light void wings was somewhat wondrous, but it was not enough for him, a great sky Yao, to be shocked. What he felt was inconceivable was the use of Mo's skills in the 10-finger prison. This was not possible. He almost shouted. 10-finger prison was constructed from Yao arts, and only the power of Yao arts could be used in the 10-finger prison. No matter if it was Mo's skills, or Xiu spells, they definitely could not appear in the 10-finger prison. Even the first prison, vast water clear skies, was not an exception. But what happened in front of him completely broke this rule that had existed for countless years. What was this? Strangely, a thread of fright appeared in Pu Yao's heart. Zuo did not know of the thread of fright floating in Pu Yao's heart, but even if he knew, he would only snort and mock. He cultivated a variety of things, and did not have a bias towards any kind of power, and was curious about them all. Even more so, he didn't have the time to chat with Pu Yao. Even though the fireball had been destroyed, but the dangerous presence filling the surroundings had not weakened but had increased. When the last spark fell, a change occurred. In the void, a faint incorporeal shadow appeared. A heavy water element-based power spread. Glittering and transparent rivers of water crisscrossed as they appeared around him. Some were fast, some were slow, some were clear like precious gems, some were as turbid as mud. The prison battlefield seemed to have returned to its usual state. Zuo Mo's consciousness didn't dare to stay back and suddenly spread out. A water arrow suddenly flew out of a river flow in front of him. This transparent water arrow announced the start of battle. Blue light suddenly exploded. Numerous water Yao arts flew out of the crisscrossing river flows. They covered the skies and ground like a thunderstorm. The Yao in the surroundings changed expression. Even those experts that thought they were skilled in water Yao arts were so shocked they almost jumped up when they saw the scene. This attack included 361 water Yao arts, from the simplest water arrow, the water bomb, to the combinations that formed water birds, water butterflies, to the higher-level water dragons and beasts. What was even more astounding was that each water bird seemed almost alive, the transparent feathers extremely detailed. The Yao at this time finally knew what terrifying level Qian Lu Daren's water Yao arts had reached. Clear skies, thousand streams, awe-inspiring and terrifying. Shocked, the faces of the Yao became slightly intoxicated. Such beautiful water Yao arts definitely were peerless. As to Zuo Mo, who had activated the prison-breaking battle, no one looked at him again. Maybe he was amazingly talented, maybe he was the successor to a mysterious Yao art, but in front of Qian Lu Daren, he was fated to lose his halo, he was fated to become as inconsequential as a speck of dust. Inside the battlefield, Zuo Mo's expression changed drastically. His vision was filled with the flooding blue sea that was made from the light of numerous water Yao arts. These glowing and beautiful water Yao arts were of different shapes and various speeds, but they all had the smell of danger. The hairs on Zuo Mo's body stood on end. Each water Yao art was not difficult or complex for him, but when 361 water Yao arts came at the same time, he was instantly in a life-threatening predicament, and did not even have room to dodge. Incredible water Yao arts. The scent of death was so close. His face was slightly cold as though death's decaying face was pressed against his with a strange smile. His mind was blank, his limbs were wooden. All of his battle intent gone, all of his motivation became fragile like glass in front of such a peerless attack, and was instantly shattered. Zuo Mo's body was frozen and unable to move a finger. He could only look dazedly at the ocean-like blue light rushing towards him. The almost tangible water element power was pressing at his brows. He watched as he was going to be swallowed by this vast ocean of blue light. Damn it! Zuo Mo suddenly shook and woke up from his dumbstruck state. What followed right after was shame from the heart. He had actually been shocked by the enemy's attack, so frightened that he had lost all intent of rebelling. Damn it! Zuo Mo's eyes suddenly turned bright red like two balls of flame. The cold blood in his body suddenly boiled. Strong anger filled every part of his chest. He was furious because of his weakness, he felt furious for losing his resolve. Breaking through the hard ice, the erupting desire to battle, his anger and shame merged together. Zuo Mo instantly sank into a rage. His eyes crimson red, in a raging Zuo Mo's hands closed together and then opened. Hiss crack, a blinding lightning net appeared between his hands. The thin silver lightning snakes curved as they swam. 30 thumb-sized hard lightning bolts moved uncertainly in the lightning net. Yang fiend hard lightning. If Zuo Mo was clear in mind at this time, he would be joyful at his improvement in the Yao arts. When he used the young fiend hard lightning. This time, the presence it gave was completely different, and was very pressuring. No matter if it was the increase in spiritual power or his understanding of the Yao arts, all of it was completely on display through the young fiend hard lightning that he had used so many times. A furious bellow suddenly sounded from inside the blue light. Immediately after, a dot of silver energy suddenly lit up inside the blue light. Then this silver energy became increasingly brighter and bigger. What was this? The Yao watching were slightly shocked. They speculated on what kind of Yao art this silver energy was. Boom boom boom. Sounds of explosions continued inside the thick blue light like explosions from the bottom of the water. But quickly, the faces of the Yao who were more attentive were slightly weird. They found to their shock that the sound of the explosions had changed starting from the 10th explosion. It was not as deep and muffled, and was increasingly bright. Was it? They couldn't help but show shock in their eyes. The explosions were like thunder and rolled in waves. Just as the Yao were uncertain, an enormous sound exploded. Every Yao felt the silver light turn blindingly bright and their vision instantly turned to white. When the light dissipated, and the eyes of the Yao recovered to look at the battlefield clearly, they instantly were amazed. How was it possible? In the battlefield, Zhuo Mo's body was covered in smoke and fire. He cut a very sorry figure. But no Yao laughed at him now. They looked in disbelief at Zhuo Mo, their mouths unconsciously sighing in shock. The yells of those young and beautiful female Yao came in waves. Their expressions were excited and uncontrollable. Qi was dumbstruck. Just now, he had also lost himself in Qian Lu Daren's water Yao arts and judged that Zhuo Mo could not win. Then he saw the hardy Zhuo Mo standing in the battlefield. Shocked, he had to sigh lightly. If before this battle, he had thought that Purple Lotus Yao Art House had a chance of recruiting the other, after this battle, he understood that Purple Lotus Yao Art House could not keep the other. Deep respect and joy stemming from the heart showed in Man Yu's crystal-like eyes. The yells of the female Yao quickly infected the other Yao. Even those people that usually did not show their emotions now used all kinds of ways to vent the excitement inside. In the last round, they saw the hope of Zhuo Mo's victory. This was a prison-breaking battle. The one that broke one of the prisons would be able to rename the prison they defeated. This was an honor that each Yao dreamed of, this was the beginning of a legend. Right now, this was happening in front of them. Such a lucky matter to be able to personally see it. This was also why they could not maintain their calm, and were so excited. The spectators were peerlessly excited. They used all kinds of methods to tell their friends and family what was happening. The people that had started recording Yao arts previously grinned up to their ears as though they had won the lottery. Just as every Yao was excited, Zhuo Mo opened his eyes in the battlefield. The pure red eyes did not show any signs of dissipating. Still in a rage, Zhuo Mo turned and looked around like a wild beast. The Yao on the outside gradually calmed down. The crisscrossing rivers in the battlefield had not disappeared. This meant that the prison-breaking battle had not finished. Qian Lu Daren definitely left another move behind. Just as the Yao were speculating, they suddenly found the guy that was smoking in the battlefield looked around as though he was searching for prey. He quickly walked murderously towards one of the river flows. The abnormal movement in the battlefield instantly attracted all of the Yao's eyes. Some Yao with good eyes even noticed that Zhuo Mo seemed to be shouting something. In the blink of an eye, Zhuo Mo charged in front of a river flow. The movement that Zhuo Mo made immediately after caused the hearts of all the Yao to stop. Outside the battlefield, it was a deathly silence. He inserted his hand into the river flow in front of him. This guy, what did he want to do? Chapter 350, You Dare Attack Gu. The raging Zhuo Mo seemed to be insane, growling from the deepest part of his throat like a furious animal roaring. You dare attack GE, you will definitely die, destroy you fuckers. Swayamo seemed to have been messed with. Angry, he searched for anything that he could attack. He changed his reactive and defensive posture, and attacked head-on. Didn't the water Yao arts fly out from these river flows? Then he will flatten all of these river flows. With both of his hands in the river flow he attacked. His fury and rage did not make him lose his judgment, but heightened the sensitive intuition of a wild beast. In just that instant, the structure of the river flow constructed of Yao arts seemed to flash across his mind like flowing water. Without needing to think, he started to deconstruct it. In his eyes, the enormous river flow was not any different than those rocks and flora he previously deconstructed, just a little bit bigger in scale. Who had left the impression of the river flows? What was Clear Sky's thousand flow? Prison-breaking battle? What was that? His eyes crimson red and only held the most primitive crazy desire for battle and stubbornness. Deconstruction, complete deconstruction. The river flow was more complex than any Yao art he had deconstructed before, but Swomo's attacking capabilities were far stronger in this moment than normal. His mind was unprecedentedly focused, his reactions unusually sensitive and his intuition abnormally accurate. The hands that were in the river flow swayed gently like reeds. The water flow was lit up with a faint glowing light and had a blurry beauty. The Yao outside the battlefield were completely struck dumb by Swomo's actions. Gulp. Simultaneous sounds of swallowing. It was so clear and ear-piercing in the deathly silent vast water-clear skies. No one cared. Their eyes couldn't bear to stray from the figure in the battlefield for a moment. Of course they could see that Swayamo was like a provoked lion who had started to furiously retaliate. Anyone who wasn't an idiot could see. But didn't this guy know this was the prison battlefield that Qianlu Daren set down? That was Qianlu Daren. The Qianlu Daren who had the appellation of Clear Sky Thousand Flows, the king of water Yao arts, the Qianlu Daren known in the world and had the qualifications to enter the Council of Elders. Shouldn't every Yao be shaking and filled with admiration and respect in front of the marks such a legend left behind? But that furious figure in their field of vision was such an eyesore, so painful that they felt disbelief. Why was he angry? How could he be angry? That was Qianlu Daren. Arrogance. A term jumped out in the hearts of the Yao. They could not believe that one of a younger generation dared to use this kind of posture to face the prison battlefield that Qianlu Daren had set down. No, this was not facing off, this was a challenge. That was right, this was a challenge. Heavens! There was a Yao who dared to challenge Qianlu Daren. All the Yao were shocked by their thoughts and looked dazedly at the battlefield. Nanyu did not notice teacher Qi, whose mouth was wide and had a dazed expression. Her black eyes were tightly locked onto the hands that Swayamo had immersed into the river flows. When those hands lit up with the familiar glow, her eyes instantly became very wide. Daren was using deconstruction. For a whole moment, her mind was blank, but she shook and reacted. She did not know just how shocked the expression on her face was. She pressed hard against her furiously beating heart, her lips white from being bitten by her teeth as she stared at Daren's hands. As though that pair of hands had a kind of magnetism. If Daren was really deconstructing Qianlu Daren's. She almost didn't dare to keep thinking, but she knew that the scene in front of her was a once-in-a-thousand chance. To be able to see Daren deconstructing the water Yao art of Qianlu Daren, even if it was not successful, it was a chance that would only appear once in her lifetime. The taste of blood suddenly spread inside her mouth. She instantly reacted. She had been too nervous and bit through the skin of her lip. However, this little distraction caused her heart to relax slightly. Out of the corners of her eyes, she noticed that people were casting recording Yao arts. She instantly thought, she was so stupid, she even forgot about the recording Yao arts. There were recoding Yao arts among all the Yao arts, and had the same purpose as the Xiuxia's Mirage Jade Scrolls. However, the recording Yao arts could be stored in the sea of consciousness of the Yao, and were more convenient. She hurriedly cast a recording Yao art to prepare for her to study slowly when she returned. This entire distraction caused her to calm down greatly. She could finally act calmly. Watching the lights on Darren's hands, her mind quickly matched the corresponding Yao arts. Very quickly, the face that had just calmed down showed shock again. Little Yao arts. All of them were little Yao arts. Nan Yu could clearly see. She was able to match the little Yao arts to the dozen of lights that lit up. When she realized this, she was truly stunned. Did Darren plan on using little Yao arts to deconstruct Xian Lu Darren's water Yao arts? She had been amazed when Darren had used a little Yao art combination to defeat Xian Lu Darren's fire Yao art. Even though she felt shocked, but she could still accept it. Xian Lu Darren was famed for his water Yao arts, and no one had heard of his fire Yao arts. But Darren was now using little Yao arts to deconstruct the water Yao arts that Xian Lu Darren had become famous for. This caused Nan Yu's mind to short-circuit. No matter if it was the disbelief of the Yao outside the battlefield or Nan Yu's blank mind, they did not affect Zhuai Mo inside the battlefield at all. He wasn't deliberately using little Yao arts, but it was because he only knew little Yao arts. From when he had started to deconstruct Yao arts, Pu Yao had only taught him one method, to use little Yao arts. Pu Yao had also made little Yao arts appear wonderful, and that any Yao art could be deconstructed with little Yao arts etc. etc. This directly gave Zhuai Mo the wrong impression, that all deconstruction should be done with little Yao arts. Also, these river flows that were in front of him in his view were just some more complex Yao arts. So he did not hesitate in following his usual habits as he started to deconstruct it. What he did not know was that Pu Yao in his sea of consciousness was gaping and wide-eyed. The usually cold and evil face was dumb, and his eyes had almost dropped out. There was only one thought left in his mind: this guy was using little Yao arts to deconstruct. This river flow was more complex than any object that Zhuai Mo had encountered in vast water-clear skies. He was even able to see the deep laws of water Yao arts within them. However, there was no true difference in Zhuai Mo's eyes, it was just more complex. When the raging Zhuai Mo encountered a complex problem, his response once again was unexpected to Pu Yao. He didn't become more restless, but he was like a lion that met a comparable rival. His desire to fight and compete expanded. He had attacked first, and unconsciously became the proactive one. The lights on his hands continuously changed, and the rate of change accelerated, so fast that it was hard to decipher. The speed that his hand cast little Yao arts continuously grew faster. In a short time, it surpassed the fastest speed he could cast at. Zhuai Mo did not notice this. But he was clear that just this speed was not enough to deconstruct the river flow in front of him. Zhuai Mo's repeated attacks of little Yao arts instantly caused the river flow to retaliate. The river flow in front of him suddenly lit up with faint light. In the void, it looked like a glowing belt of light that floated. Zhuai Mo made a muffled grunt and his crimson-red eyes became even more reddened. Just now, 5 water Yao arts had silently sneaked near him from the river flow. He had almost been hit. The raging Zhuai Mo became even more furious. Without another word, the rate of little Yao art changes on his hands increased another step. The speed he was casting little Yao arts now was 2 times his fastest speed. The effect was immediately seen. The peaceful river flow suddenly severely rippled. The river flow in front of Zhuai Mo suddenly shook fiercely like the twisted body of a snake in pain struggling fiercely. In response, the speed of the river flow also increased. Numerous translucent schools of fish appeared in the river flow. These schools of fish all had various shapes, their bodies transparent and made completely of water. If they were not seen from at a close distance, it was very difficult to detect them. There were so many schools of fish that they could not be counted. Once they were formed, they furiously leaped toward Suomo's hands in the river flow. His mind unprecedentedly focused, Suomo instantly noticed the change of the river flow. But his feeling was completely different than those of the spectators. These furiously charging schools of fish, in his mind, were just new changes in the structure of the Yao art making up the river flow. He didn't have any fear, and felt very excited because this meant that his deconstruction method was right. The river flow had detected the danger, which was the reason it retaliated so fiercely. "Come on, baby." Suomo's blood rose to his head, his desire for battle rising to a peak. The little Yao arts his hands were casting were even more insane and became faster. His two hands turned to one ball of intangible shadows. It was impossible to see his 10 fingers clearly. His consciousness and finger movements were unusually in sync at this moment. With the smallest change of his finger, his consciousness would automatically make the corresponding change. Lights flew between his flying hands with astounding speed. Some of these various colored lights headed straight for the schools of fish, some grouped together, and there were even several dozen that welcomed the school of fish like a net. Suomo felt unspeakably great. The little Yao arts seemed to have become an instinctive part of him, and he had no problems casting them. But he did not immerse himself in the feeling of pleasure. He only had one target in his eyes. Deconstruction. Complete destruction. He was going to completely deconstruct this damned river flow. Dare attack GE. Die. All die. Faster. Even faster. Just a bit more. The speed of the two hands seemed to suddenly decrease. If it was put in slow motion, one would find the practiced motions seemed to pause, but this stop was very short, so short that people would find it hard to detect. After this extremely short pause, the two hands that had been blurry into one ball slowly separated. 2 balls of shadow, 2 balls of furiously changing light balls. The river flow that had been vibrating fiercely suddenly stopped. The body of the continuously struggling glittering snaking river seemed to freeze in this moment. The rushing river flows around, the spraying waves, they all stopped in the sky. Time seemed to suddenly stop. All the river flows in the entire prison battlefield froze, silent and motionless. Chapter 351, Thousand Flow Water Breath Pia Pia Pia. The dense sounds of corn popping rang without warning. With Suomo's hands as the starting point, the explosions rapidly spread with astounding speed towards the two ends of the river flow. When it reached the very end, the entire river flow was bombed into countless snowy white water foam by another even stronger explosion. Suomo's figure was instantly swallowed by the wave of water foam. The fine water foam was like snowflakes which had been blown free, somber and beautiful. This beautiful scene was forever imprinted upon the minds of the female Yao that were watching. The desolate and silent void, the sky full of snowflakes that had been thrown about, the scene was picturesque. It wasn't just the female Yao. Even those male Yao that only admired strength were shocked by the scene in front of them. However, they quickly broke free of their shock. The deathly silent vast water clear skies seemed to be suddenly ignited. The sound wave instantly swallowed all of the Yao. The Yao could not hear other people's words, not even their own words, but they were so excited they could only uncontrollably shout in awe. Heavens, what did I just see? Who can tell me? Too crazy. Too crazy. Impossible, this is impossible. This is Qian Lu Daren's Water Yao Arts. Qian Lu Daren's Water Yao Arts. A male Yao held his head as he looked dazedly at the battlefield and murmured. Lang Yu and Changzheng looked soullessly at the battlefield. All the power they had seemed to have been drained away. They didn't even have the strength to speak. Compared to the disbelief and shock of the male Yao, the female Yao were very excited and exuberant. Oh, so handsome. Who knows who this guy is? I definitely have to pursue him. He is too handsome, too intoxicating. A beautiful female Yao's face was blushing as she spoke. So beautiful, he definitely is a romantic Yao. Another female Yao's eyes were intoxicated, and her face adoring. The excited Nan Yu was instantly shocked inside and out. She shook, and the hairs on her body began standing up. Then she couldn't help but think, if Darren heard this, she didn't know how he would respond. This thought flashed through her mind before disappearing. She suppressed her excitement, and started to think back to the little Yao arts that Darren had just cast. She was very familiar with little Yao arts. If she could see it, she definitely could quickly identify what kind of little Yao art it was. But the light that just covered Darren's hands was completely different than the little Yao arts that she had seen before. Had Darren used new Yao arts? This suspicion flashed past her mind. She shook her head. Intuition told her that Darren had still used little Yao arts. She didn't recognize those strange lights, but they seemed to be slightly familiar. Her eyes suddenly widened. She thought of a possibility. If the speed that little Yao arts were cast was fast enough, and broke through the normal barrier. The shock of Qian Lu Darren's water Yao arts being defeated was a far greater blow to all the Yao than the fireball being dissipated before. Qian Lu Darren had been young when he had set vast water clear skies, but the male Yao in the battlefield certainly did not appear to be of a great age. Qian Lu Darren had established his name of Clear Skies Thousand Flow. It was possible to predict that the mysterious male young Yao in the battlefield would be known throughout the world regardless of whether he finished the prison-breaking battle in the end. Previously, everyone had felt Sui Mo had been too arrogant to challenge Qian Lu Darren's water Yao arts, but right now, many Yao were seriously considering how probable it was that Sui Mo could win. The short attack allowed them to understand the mysterious young male Yao in the battlefield had potential no less than crystal clear thousand flow. This world was really crazy. A legend that only existed in heroic tales was really happening in front of them. The feeling of dreamy surrealism made many Yao felt dazed for a moment. Qi's mouth was bitter as he grimaced. He knew his plan had failed. Qi couldn't predict what level Nan Yu's strange Corson would reach, but the power that he displayed now was not lacking compared to the young Clear Skies Thousand Flow. A genius whose future was limitless. Was it even possible that the little purple lotus Yao art house could recruit him? Strange cousin isn't just strange, he had some talent. The tree Yao carelessly praised as though what he had just seen was a normal house battle. Every single blossom on the flower Yao's body flipped like numerous pairs of eyes simultaneously rolling their eyes. The other students at the side really could not resist themselves due to the tree Yao's otherworldly conduct. Shut up. Before, they had felt that Sui Mo's conduct was full of ignorance about his own abilities, but now, Sui Mo had risen to a height that they could admire. In their view, even the house elder of the Purple Lotus Yao art house might not have the qualifications to judge Sui Mo. So what was the tree Yao? How could he speak so grandly? The tree Yao waved his branches in shock. Don't you also feel the same? So strange. Has some skill. Really strange. How can you be more strange than the strange cousin? This time, even the other Yao that had been preparing to mock saw the situation clearly and shrunk back. To argue with this deluded person was to find displeasure for themselves. Before the fine snowy white water foam had dissipated, there was another string of explosions and the layers of snowy white foam rippled. The attention of all the Yao were attracted. The explosions came endlessly. Thick snowy white water foam completely covered the entire prison battlefield. No Yao was able to clearly see Sui Mo's figure. But those explosions were enough to prove that Sui Mo was still in the battlefield. Sui Mo charged in every direction, his eyes crimson red as he howled like a crazed wild beast. If he found a river flow, he would instantly leap over. Roused by the killing, he inexhaustibly searched for the next river flow, and continued to deconstruct. He became even more practiced and his efficiency increased drastically. After a while, he was able to locate the weak points to break through before the first wave of counterattacks arrived. It was like solving problems. There were many kinds of problems, but as he became familiar, his way of thinking became clear, and naturally became more at ease. He completely had no intention of leaving face for the other. There was only one thought in his mind. You dare to attack GE, all die, die. Destroy, destroy, completely destroy. The crisscrossing river flows continuously exploded into snowy foam. When the last flowing river was deconstructed, Zhuemo widened his eyes among the snowy foam turbulence and looked around. He wanted to find his next target. As his consciousness expanded, he suddenly found that they all seemed to have been resolved. All resolved. There was nothing left. Fine cold water foam covered his face. The temperature of his boiling hot head couldn't help but decrease. The anger inside seemed to have been pretty much vented. He showed an expression of reluctance. He felt very exhilarated at doing deconstruction. Just as he was enjoying it, the target disappeared. Suddenly, a warm and gentle presence suddenly shot out of the void. The flying and moving snowy white foam seemed to have suddenly come to life. Their speed slowly decreased until they were set in the void. This presence could not be considered strong, there was no tyrannical presence that could conquer the world. It was warm but not conspicuous, yet peerlessly weighty. It was like a boundless ocean, so vast that it inspired awe. Under this warm and vast presence, threads of vitality like the sun being born slowly rose up from the water. As the presence appeared, it covered the entire vast water-clear skies, and covered every Yao in vast water-clear skies. Is this water breath? Lang Yu reached out with his palm as though he wanted to grab this presence, and murmured to himself. Every Yao who cultivated water Yao arts had serious expressions at this moment. They spread out their arms as though they wanted to throw themselves into this vast presence. Yao like Qi who cultivated fire Yao arts seemed to be sitting on pins. Without knowing it, a thin layer of sweat covered their heads. Water breath was one of the base sources of power comprehended after water Yao arts were cultivated to a very deep level. There were many kinds of little Yao arts. Each Yao's water Yao arts were different, and the water breath they would comprehend would vary. When Yao that comprehended water breath cast water Yao arts, the power was much greater than normal water Yao arts. As the cultivation deepened, the comprehension of water breath would continuously change. The more the comprehension of water breath was perfected, the deeper the understanding of water Yao arts. Comprehending water breath was the most important badge for every water art cultivating Yao to have a deep understanding. Countless Yao who had spent decades cultivating water Yao arts were unable to comprehend water breath. It was not strange or unexpected that Qian Lu Darren had comprehended water breath when he was young. But that attributes that Qian Lu Darren's water breath showed made every Yao feel all vast and full of life. The more the Yao was skilled in water Yao arts, the faster their hearts beat. Shouldn't such high-level laws only appeared on those old Yao that had cultivated for centuries? Zhuemo was also very shocked. He was very familiar with water element spells. Even though water element spells and water Yao arts were completely different, but the base source of water did not change. This presence was not dominating, but it was extremely pure. Then an unprecedented feeling of anger filled every pore of Zhuemo's body. He wasn't a greenhorn that just stepped onto the battlefield. When this water breath appeared, he instantly found the terrifying power under its warm and peaceful surface. It was like a basin of cold water was poured from his head to his toes, and cooled his heart. Zhuemo found that, in front of this vast presence full of life, he was so minuscule he was like a speck of dust. Minuscule like a speck of dust. A dot of light suddenly appeared in Zhuemo's eyes that were still bloodshot. It was like the spark that lit up in the wild. He raised his face and looked forward as though he was going to penetrate the thick white water foam with his eyes. He suddenly smiled. With the mannerism of a peerless expert, filled with nonchalance. The curve of his mouth increased until the corners of his mouth reached his ears and revealed the snowy white, neat and sharp teeth. The tone of his voice as it came out was completely opposite his aloof appearance. It was gritted through his teeth, and was filled with undisguised ferocity. Gu dislikes people that never commit the most. The murderous Suemo started his insane actions. A golden light flashed on his back, and a pair of faint golden and transparent wings appeared. Countless hair-thin gold threads climbed up from the bottom of Suemo's feet until they entirely covered his legs. The golden threads suddenly tightened as though they tied up his legs. Light void wings, golden crow feet. Immediately after, numerous hard lightning appeared and floated around Suemo to form a thick net of lightning. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. 108 bolts of Yang Fiend Hard Lightning. After finishing all this, Suemo didn't raise his head, and his hands started to swipe and move with difficulty. Chapter 352, The Reappearance of Wasteland Sacrificial Art. A gray shadow flew out from Suemo's right hand. The gray shadow was like a wasteland beast that had left its cage. It grew in size, and the deep hissing it made shocked people down to their souls. Archaic Wasteland Sacrificial Art. The last joker in Suemo's hands was unhesitatingly thrown out at this moment. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao had a complicated expression, one that Suemo would think was spectacular at this time. His expression was complex and showed a faint bitterness. The archaic wasteland sacrificial art was the Yao art that his teacher had created. Teacher had never hidden any part of it from him. He could recite any part of the Yao art, but even so, after 1,000 years, he still could not successfully cast this Yao art. Thinking back to his nickname of Encyclopedia of Yao Arts, it seemed full of irony. Archaic wasteland sacrificial art looked simple, but it actually was complex in many places. Otherwise, how could Pu Yao still not be able to find the method to cast it after so many years had passed? Last time, he had only wanted to try, and just gave a few words of guidance. He had not expected Suemo to successfully cast the art. Today, Suemo's movements were still unpracticed, but he had successfully cast it again. It was enough to show that he had grasped the crux of this Yao art, and his success was not just a matter of luck. What was an incredibly difficult Yao art in Pu Yao's eyes was easily grasped by Suemo and without the other knowing its difficulty. Other than bitterness and mockery, he couldn't help but admire Suemo's talent. Thinking back carefully, he found that inexperienced youth he had first met was more average in all areas compared to the present. This guy's staying power was very strong. He suddenly snickered. His consciousness was greater than Suemo's. The prison battlefield could block Suemo's consciousness, but could not stop Pu Yao's consciousness. Pu Yao knew everything about what was happening outside. His mood instantly made a 180-degree turn, especially when he saw the spectacular expressions of the spectating Yao. Maybe it was pretty good to have such a student. Even though Suemo was not a Yao, and was a human, but in the eyes of Pu Yao, who usually did not tread the conventional path, this wasn't a concern at all. At some time in the future, he definitely had to urge Suemo to go to the Yao world. It would be really fun to cause a storm. Imagining the shocked expressions of those old guys, he couldn't help but roar with laughter. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's free yet somewhat insane laughter echoed. Suemo did not hear Pu Yao's laughter. His mind was focused as he cast the archaic wasteland sacrificial art. The simple yet authoritative presence was like a vicious wasteland beast slowly walking out of the mist. The oncoming presence was suffocating. Its movements were not fast, but were filled with perfect ease. It suddenly stopped its movement. The spectating Yao felt their throats tighten as though a noose had been suddenly tightened around their necks. They couldn't breathe. Terror suddenly jumped from their feet up, the bone-aching coldness spreading through their entire bodies, their minds completely blank. He seemed to see an ancient wasteland beast the size of a mountain looking down indifferently. The mountain-like presence covered the world, and bore down like a mountain. The Yao lost their courage. They wanted to turn and run. Those that were less daring collapsed onto the ground. Even those guys who thought themselves powerful had ashen faces at this moment. Xian Lu Daren's water breath was vastness and full of life. And this grey figure was filled with tyranny and destruction. The second prison. Numerous Yao suddenly stopped what they were doing at the same moment. They raised their heads in shock. A dangerous presence filled with tyranny and destruction rushed past them like a gust of wind. The enormous second prison sank into a strange silence. A moment later, these Yao that had been hard at work unhesitatingly dropped what they were doing, and started to fly in the same direction. If one looked from above the second prison, they would find that numerous figures seemed to be attracted to one location. It was the entrance to the first prison. Feeling the danger of the archaic wasteland sacrificial art presented, the vast water breath that had been warm and peaceful a moment ago suddenly roiled. Suemo seemed to be situated in an angry ocean. The enormous waves that charged up could swallow him at any instant. These furious waves contained power that could crumble mountains and upend seas. If he was touched the tiniest bit, even with the great Daimo physique, there would only be one outcome, his body completely shattered. The complete reverse of the peace and harmony, the prison battlefield had turned to the other extreme. Suemo understood this represented another attribute of the water breath. After experiencing the voyages on endless ocean, he understood just how the furious water could be terrifying powerful. His surroundings were filled with abundant moisture. Almost in the blink of an eye, a boundless ocean appeared under Suemo's feet. Minuscule, Suemo once again felt just how minuscule he was. In front of this raging and vast water breath, people were forced to admit their insignificance. Suemo bit his lips tightly and tried to maintain his resolve. His hands were still methodically swiping in the air. All of his strength was gathered in his body. Come! Suemo suddenly raised his flushed eyes. Almost at the same time, two empty red lights suddenly lit up in the grey shadow. They were like a pair of vicious eyes. The ignited red eyes were lantern-sized, and like giving the touch of life to a painting, the figure of the wasteland beast that had been slightly intangible did not seem to feel transient any longer. It was alive. Even though the figure of the wasteland beast was not defined, but all of the Yao had a strong feeling, it was alive. The tyrannical and destructive presence suddenly exploded like a volcano and headed into the clouds. It really was alive. The spectating Yao all shook. The two terrifying presences conflicted. They were like beauties that had just been abused getting abused again. Among the crowds of Yao, light flashed occasionally outside the prison battlefield. Each flash of light meant that a Yao could not withstand the two oppressive presences and was forced out of the 10-finger prison. Inside the 10-finger prison, if their mental defenses were broken, they would be forcibly ejected from the 10-finger prison. This kind of situation was not common. The Yao cultivated their consciousness. In terms of mental strength, they were much stronger than Xianxia or Mo. But today, after the successive blows from two peerlessly presences, the Yao that usually cultivated in the first prison could not bear it. Even Nan Yu only stood for 3 breaths before she was pushed out of the 10-finger prison. In comparison, Lang Yu and Chang Zheng's situation was much better. They usually cultivated in the second prison, but there was no ease on their faces. They seemed to be struggling to bear it. The other Yao fortunate enough to remain all had pained expressions on their faces, but no one retreated of their own accord. Everyone knew that the face-off between the two presences that was coming would be a great conflict. To be able to personally see a battle of such a level, even if they had to pay a great price to watch, they would unhesitatingly choose to do so, much less just tolerate some pain. This kind of opportunity was rare. The lantern-sized vicious eyes glowed with red light. The waves that seemed to cover the sky did not seem to affect it. It suddenly opened its mouth. The open mouth suddenly formed a great suction force. Numerous waves were forcibly pulled away from the water by this force and flew towards the open mouth of the wasteland beast. The furious ocean suddenly paused shortly. The surface of the water that had instantly calmed rippled. It was rebelling against this suction. The light of the two enormous pupils in the gray shadow increased. The suction power increased. Whoosh whoosh. Like a whale drinking rivers, numerous pillars of water were sucked into the mouth of the wasteland beast. The wasteland beast's mouth seemed to be a bottomless hole. No matter how much water entered, it showed no signs of expanding. But how could the vast ocean formed by the water breath be defeated so easily? That was the water breath that Crystal Void Qian Lu Darren had left behind. The vast ocean was colossal and showed no signs of shrinking. Many schools of fish suddenly appeared under the water. These schools of fish were different than the schools of fish that appeared before. They were of flesh of blood. Life. Suemo suddenly understood. These schools of fish were truly lives that had been created by the water breath. There were innumerable schools of fish. They furiously leapt at the wasteland beast. The strong vitality they carried was like boiling water and caused fear. The shaking vitality did not serve as nutrients, but poison. This blow was like the grass that broke the camel's back for the Yao who had been struggling outside the battlefield. Innumerable lights flashed. None of the Yao outside the battlefield remained. For the first time, the wasteland beast showed wariness. These fragile lives caused the powerful wasteland beast to feel danger. Suemo was very surprised. Just as Suemo felt shock, the lantern eyes of the wasteland beast suddenly blinked slyly. Suemo was shocked still by this person-like action of the wasteland beast. The figure of the wasteland beast suddenly started to change. Its body suddenly turned to shadow and divided into a top and bottom half. Almost at the same time, Suemo's hands seemed to be out of his control as they unconsciously started to move. Little Yao Arts, Number 1, Number 500. The top half of the gray shadow suddenly started to furiously spin clockwise, while the bottom half spun counterclockwise. That absurd and conflicting feeling appeared again. Suemo felt as though he was being pulled by two wagons in opposite directions, and was unspeakably uncomfortable. After having experienced it before, Suemo instantly understood what he needed to. Straight pass-through form. A power that was not strong instantly penetrated the centers of the two Yao arts. Under the feet of the wasteland beast that had turned to a whirlwind, a thread of white light suddenly rose, and above its head, a blackness started to spread. In the blink of an eye, the gray shadow turned to black and white parts that were clearly defined. A black and white millstone. The furiously turning millstone produced a much stronger suction force than before. The schools of fish that came from all directions were like thin streams that were pulled into the millstone before they could even resist. There was no flesh or blood flying. Everything was so silent it looked like a picture. In the center of the millstone, a glowing bead gradually took shape. The vast water breath filled with life quickly decreased, and the bead in the middle of the millstone became larger and glowed like a drop of dew. The blood in Suemo's eyes gradually retreated. His consciousness was extremely drained. Having recovered his calm, the first action Suemo did was gather his last thread of strength, grabbing the bead, and shoving it into his mouth. His vision darkened and he instantly lost consciousness. Chapter 353, Spread Wei Xing progressed with difficulty. Each step required a great deal of concentration from him. His clothing was in tatters and covered in dust, his entire person looked very fragile. Only that pair of black eyes showed a sharp light that seemed to penetrate the thick fiendish mist. The dangers of this journey was hundreds of times greater compared to this trip in the Sword Cave. Those soul beasts that could take form were especially vicious and cunning. They seemed to be one with the fiend mist, would silently approach to ambush and were hard to defend against. They also had an endless supply of illusory techniques that enchanted a person's mind. If it wasn't for the strength of Wei Sheng's resolve, he would have fallen a long time ago. They came like the wind, their speed was lightning fast, their attacks vicious. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would land in a precarious situation. In the most dangerous incident, he had encountered 3 fiend soul beasts. What surprised him was that these 3 fiend soul beasts knew to cooperate among themselves. In that battle, he had been wounded in a dozen places. The most serious wound was so deep his rib bones could be seen. If he did not have healing Ling Dan in his dimension ring, he would have died from the wound alone. However, Wei Sheng was still Wei Sheng. Having left the sect to come to such an unfamiliar and dangerous place, it was as though he had been released from a heavy burden. The chains on his heart were shattered. He was like a bird that had escaped the cage and was unspeakably relaxed. He did not feel uncomfortable at the dangers in front of him. He continuously experienced the ambush of all kinds of fiend soul beasts, the illusory techniques that ensnared a person's mind. These dangers did not make him want to retreat, but tempered his sword heart, even making it more refined and pure. His talent in cultivating the sword was very exceptional in the beginning. The worldly apparition when he entered Juji had caused everyone to feel anticipation about his future. Even Lin Qian of mysterious origins treated his talent slightly favorably. It was possible to see just how talented he was. Having rediscovered the calm of his sword heart, and adding on the honing from the dangerous situation, he was like a treasure sword uncovered from the dust, and gradually showed his sharpened edges. There wasn't much Ling power left. He thought inside as his gaze looked towards the depths of the fiendish mist. Previously, sword essence had exploded suddenly in the direction he had been traveling. This gave him hope. He had a strong feeling that he was not far from his target. But right now, he needed to think of everything he could do and control the consumption of Ling power. He was like the most frugal miser. If he could use 1 thread of Ling power, he would not use 2 threads. He also tried to absorb Ling power from the Jingshi in the dimensional ring, and tried to purify it of impurities. He did everything he could do. Even so, he was a sorry figure. Caressing the black sword in his hands, he raised his head again and walked forward with determination. He trusted the sword in his hands. Xixiang fainted again. Gongsun Cha gazed curiously at the unconscious Suemo. He reached out to poke and see if Xixiang was really unconscious. The "again" of Gongsun Cha's words made the other people's features twitch. Darren must be cultivating a special technique. Xia Shan found a shoddy excuse. Suemo was his boss. He had to help disguise it. Xu Long's mouth imperceptibly curved up, but he quickly became stern again. Gongsun Cha's face was regretful as he muttered, "I had been hoping he could help me fish today. Darren will rest. He probably will wake up soon," Xia Shan could only say. He had checked. There were no problems with Darren's body. Xu Long had been planning on reporting to Zuemo. He could only leave now. He was the leader of the hardship guards. There was a pile of matters waiting for him every day. The camp of the hardship guard was always set up separately. Walking into the camp, it was very busy. For other people, the abundant black fiendish energy was akin to poison, but for them, it was nothing less than the best nutrients. "Head, when will Darren come to the camp?" When Owen saw Xu Long, his eyes lit up, and he ran over with his black spear. The other hardship guards also crowded over. Xu Long felt ahead but still said expressionlessly, "Darren is cultivating now. When Darren finishes, I will report at the first moment." "Oh. Everyone's sounds carried slight disappointment. In this period of time, the hardship guard had all improved greatly. There were many people that had finished forming their weapons. Almost half of the guard camp had finished forming their weapons. Compared to before, their combat capabilities were much stronger. Some more accomplished, like a one, rocketed in their improvement. In this short amount of time, he had become the second strongest in guard camp after Shu Long. He had just woken up from his meditation, and had gained greatly. He was very innocent and he desired Darren's praise. Everyone in the camp had improved greatly. Every one of the flower slaves had comprehended a few spells. Shu Long also hoped that Darren could come to the camp. That would greatly increase morale. He hadn't expected that Darren was unconscious again. He could only go tomorrow, Shu Long thought. Nanyu rubbed her forehead as her head ached. Being forcibly ejected from the 10-finger prison meant that her consciousness had been wounded slightly. But at this time, she did not put any attention on her lightly wounded consciousness. She only wanted to know one thing now: had Darren finished the prison-breaking battle? She wanted to enter vast water clear skies again, but before her consciousness recovered, she had no way of entering vast water clear skies. Tightly biting her lips, her heart was in the air. What would vast water clear skies look like now? But she could only be impatient. She comforted herself, tomorrow, by tomorrow, she would know the result. No matter if Darren had completed the prison-breaking battle or not, this matter would spread tomorrow, and the result would naturally float to the surface. Darren had accidentally activated the prison-breaking battle. Due to this, other than the first and second prison, no one had managed to rush over in time. Right now, the news had not spread, but she dared to guarantee that by tomorrow, this matter would shake all of the Yao world. This was a prison-breaking battle. She suddenly became excited. To be able to follow such a Darren, what honor this was. In the Yao word, powerful Yao would usually have many followers. Many of them would become their Darren students, but most of them would only have the identity of a follower. However, this did not mean that they were lower than others. The guidance of a master, even if it was just a tiny bit, would greatly benefit them. Even more, Darren had promised to pass her South Sky Arrow art. Thinking about this, she unconsciously tightened her fisted hands. Nanyu, you have to work hard, and cannot disappoint Darren. She repeatedly motivated herself, her little face filled with determination. She understood her responsibilities. South Sky Wisteria clan had already declined and was tiny. She did not think about recovering the past prosperity of the Wisteria clan of the South Sky. Her only hope was to use her efforts to help the clansmen leave behind their situation of poverty. At least, they would have better lives. Nanyu, you can do it. She told herself. The vast ocean seemed borderless. Water shifted at a part of the ocean, and in a moment, a terrifying whirlpool over 200 li in diameter formed. The whirlpool spun with astonishing speed, the strong force pulling the center of the whirlpool to collapse into itself. A deep passage appeared in the center of the whirlpool. A handsome male flew out of the passage. His features were soft in its lines, a warm and elegant smile on his face that would create positive feelings, and had a transparent crystal on his forehead. He broke vast water clear skies, and swallowed my water breath bead as well. The male shook his head and smiled. Looks like a pretty talented young little Yao. Just as he was talking to himself, a dash of fire landed from the sky. Ha ha! Little Xianxia, your vast water clear skies was broken. A face appeared in the mountain-sized ball of fire. He was roaring with amused laughter. Hearing the other's appellation of him, Qian Lu's forehead twitched. But he knew if he argued with this unreasonable guy, that was definitely going up against a wall. He could only smile and say, 300 years have passed, it's time for it to be broken. The fire-faced person that had been laughing at his misfortune a moment ago couldn't help but snort. Humph. 300 years and no one came out. That group of old guys talk that whole set every day, there's no use. Qian Lu hurriedly urged, that can't be said. Even though there are no experts, but their methods at nurturing intermediate-level Yao is very effective. The temper of the fire-faced person was very explosive. He swore, effective my ass. No experts, there won't be one to be able to be seen in public. They have it hard. Qian Lu sighed. Supposedly, a few good seedlings have come from the Yao art houses. They can be considered to have set up a path. The fire-face person's temper lowered slightly, but he still growled, it's too late. We've already started the battle with the Xiuzhe. If they came a few years earlier, then that would have worked. Qian Lu said with a smile, it may not be a bad matter for them to arrive in time for this great battle. Without the tempering of true battle, it is hard for these people gain strength. In any case, you always have excuses. The fire-faced person clearly was impatient and did not want to stay on this topic. He changed direction. What, don't you want to know what the new first prison looks like? Qian Lu blinked. There is still one day until the new first prison will form. The flames around the body of the fire-faced person stilled. He had forgotten this. He hurriedly glossed over. What do you think this boy's origins are? How can I guess? I'll know when I see tomorrow. I can't wait. Vast water-clear skies had been broken. The news quickly spread through all of the large Yao Jies like it had wings, and instantly created waves. Right now, the Yao army was winning on the front lines. This news was a boost in morale for the troops. All of the Yao felt excited. Was a new era about to come? The prison-breaking battle that had not been activated for 300 years once again entered everyone's view. Some old Yao were so excited they started to reminisce about the prosperity of the Yao before the 1,000-year war. However, no one knew the origins of the mysterious guy. All kinds of recording Yao arts appeared, but people quickly found that all the recording Yao arts did not have an ending, lacking the most important and crucial part. Speculation and discussion filled every corner of the Yao world. Each Yao was waiting for the arrival of the second day, waiting for the new first prison to take form. Each Yao desired to know, what would the new first prison be like? Chapter 354, The Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Bam bam bam. The sound of knocking on the door woke Nan Yu up. She really had been too tired yesterday and slept deeply. She opened her heavy eyes, and opened the door to the room. When she saw the people that come outside, all the drowsiness instantly disappeared. The person that had knocked was Qi. His face was full of a warm smile. Behind him was a large crowd of people. Nan Yu found many of them familiar to the eye. But when she saw the house elder of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House, she couldn't help but still. Nan Yu, did we disturb your rest? Qi's tone was filled with warmth and concern, and none of the usual sternness, as though he had become a completely different person. Oh, no no. Nan Yu instinctively shook her head. She finally recalled what those old-looking people that looked familiar were. They were the elders of the Yao Art House. 2, 3, 12. Nan Yu's scalp turned numb. All of the elders of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House Council of Elders was standing in front of her home. These elders that usually were high up and indifferent all had smiles on their faces, and harmonious auras. All of the upper level of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House was here without an exception. Seeing Nan Yu still where she stood, Qi instantly understood what it was. He couldn't help but smile and say, "What? Are you not going to invite us in to sit?" Oh. Nan Yu finally reacted and seemed to wake up from her dream. She hurriedly moved away from the door. Please come in, come in. The procession streamed in. The house elder examined the bare room and said with a slight smile, "Student Nan Yu is really living simply. As expected of the role model of our house's other students. Our other students should learn from this valuable attitude." Nan Yu sweated. She wasn't simple, she was just poor. At this moment, she did not know how to respond, and could only murmur in agreement. However, the house elder's tone changed as he said passionately, "As the chief student elder of the Purple Lotus Yao Art House, Student Nan Yu should shoulder a heavier burden. This is too far away, and not convenient. Ooh, the house's Purple Lotus Park has a Spirit Clarity residence still empty. Student Nan Yu will find it much more convenient when moved over there." Chi's gaze showed threads of admiration. Spirit Clarity residence was the highest level of residence in the Purple Lotus Yao Art House. There were only 3 suites in total. The house elder actually gave one to Nan Yu. The most valuable part of the Spirit Clarity residence was the Spirit Clarity pool. It could increase the cultivation speed of the consciousness. To say nothing of the high price in constructing the Spirit Clarity pool, it could only be built on special geological forms. After that, the elders took their turns to persuade and were unparalleled in their friendliness. Nan Yu seemed to go through the entire process as though it was a dream. She did not know what to do. She only gradually refocused when the house elder and the others had left for a while. Chief Student Elder. She had become the Chief Student Elder. And they had given her a Spirit Clarity residence to use. Was she still dreaming? But when she pulled herself out of the initial excitement, she quickly understood the crux. It was not hard to guess what the attitude of the house elder and the elders were for. They were here for Darren. Even though they hadn't mentioned one word about Darren today, but Nan Yu was 100% certain that they had come for Darren. No, she had to report this to Darren. She suddenly remembered today was the day the first prison formed. Thinking to this, she instantly became excited. She inspected her consciousness. Even though she had not fully healed her injuries, but she had recovered enough to enter the first prison. She instantly entered meditation and directly entered the first prison. "Arg, motherfucker," the pain Swayamo wailed. It had been a long time since his consciousness had been wounded. The long-absent pain appeared again. The feeling of pain seemed to have grown even stronger. "This is the result of trying to show off," Pu Yao mocked neutrally. "Ouch, ouch, which guy was scheming against me? No, I can't have suffered for nothing, I have to return it." The pain Swayamo still exposed his vengeful nature. "You aren't a match," Pu Yao said mercilessly. "How can it be known without a fight? Tell me quickly." Swayamo looked as though he would not give up and was murderous. "Crystal Void Qian Lu. Crystal Void Qian Lu. What thing is that?" Swayamo's face was curious. "It isn't a thing, just a 300 years little Yao." "Che, just a 300-year little Yao," Swayamo said unconcernedly. A tendon throbbed in Pu Yao's forehead. He forcibly suppressed it. He comprehended water breath. Water breath? Swayamo instantly became alert and said braggingly, "That was water breath? Didn't it get destroyed by my archaic wasteland sacrificial art?" "Your archaic wasteland sacrificial art?" The tendon in Pu Yao's forehead jumped again. He pretended to be calm and said, "That was an imprint he left behind 300 years ago." "An imprint left 300 years ago?" Swayamo jumped in fright. In other words, he was this powerful 300 years ago. Right. The expression on Swayamo's face changed as he said embarrassedly, "Peace is valuable, peace is valuable. It's not good to fight and kill for nothing." Ignoring Pu Yao's disdainful gaze, he asked curiously, "Why did his imprint attack me? I didn't offend him. He finds you an eyesore." Pu Yao's caused Swayamo's expression to become even more embarrassed. It seems that 10-Finger Prison is really a dangerous place. I should not go to such a kind of place. Pu Yao heard this and thought inside, no, if Sua Mo was afraid and did not go to the 10-finger prison in the future, it would be a troublesome matter. He was very familiar with Sua Mo's personality. This guy could not be forced, and could only be tempted. If there were enough benefits, this guy would howl and charge. There's a bit of danger, but there are also many benefits. Pu Yao's expression was indifferent as though he was speaking objectively. You destroyed his imprint, and swallowed his water breath bead. Haven't you felt anything? Sua Mo finally remembered after Pu Yao's remember the bead he had swallowed before he had fainted. He hurriedly made an examination and immediately found the water breath bead. A glowing dewy bead floated in his sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness where a sea of flames danced had a lively and abundant humidity. The faint moisture spread from the dew bead. Wherever the moisture passed, the wounded consciousness was like burnt soil receiving nurturing and became full of life again. Sua Mo felt unspeakably comfortable. This was something really good. Sua Mo's mind moved. The dew bead flew in front of him and a warm moisture blew into his face. The water breath bead can heal. To make Sua Mo understand the value of the water breath bead, Pu Yao naturally spoke endlessly. Not just healing. With it, you will have an easier time comprehending your own water breath. Once you have comprehended water breath, it will merge into the water breath that you comprehend. You will have an easier time casting the great majority of water Yao arts, and water element spells, their power would also be greater. This powerful? Sua Mo felt very excited. He was clear to the value embodied. With this water breath bead, it meant that his affinity to water had increased. This would increase the strength of a major type of Yao arts and spells. Water element spells, Ge knows them. He cast a little art of cloud and rain, with pride. A palm size could instantly floated in his palm. The cloud ball from the little art of cloud and rain, this time was different than before. The cloud ball seemed to be alive. The threads of rain that fell seemed to contain vitality. When they landed in Sua Mo's palm, then sunk into Sua Mo's skin and disappeared. Sua Mo felt refreshed. The 6th level of little art of cloud and rain. Sua Mo's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. Just with the addition of a water breath bead, his little art of cloud and rain had leveled up to the 6th level. The 6th level of little art of cloud and rain was significantly useful. Sua Mo was overjoyed. Treasure. Great treasure. Can this even be called a treasure? Pu Yao seemed to know Sua Mo's thoughts, and an imperceptible smile floated on the corners of Pu Yao's mouth. He continued to tempt Sua Mo, the water breath was just from the prison-breaking battle of the first prison. Each prison of the 10-finger prison has something good. Only what is in the later prisons can be called treasures. Each prison has their own. Sua Mo's eyes lit up. What? Are you interested? Pu Yao glanced at Sua Mo with deliberate calmness. Interested. Very interested. Sua Mo nodded frantically. He rubbed his palms and said warmly, Pu Yao, let's get them all. So many treasures, they can't be wasted. This will depend on your skills. Pu Yao did not refute it. The later prison-breaking battles will be more powerful than this. Countless Jingshi spun in Sua Mo's eyes. He drooled and said with a stupid smile, that's nothing, we can wear them down, wear them to death. The water breath bead was wondrous as expected. Not long after, Sua Mo's injured consciousness was healed. Sua Mo was full of praise, and desired the other treasures even more. Let's go, you have not named your prison battlefield yet, Pu Yao said as he pulled Sua Mo into vast water-clear skies. Sua Mo looked at the unfamiliar environment, his mouth wide, and his face stunned. The crisscrossing river flows from before had all disappeared. The shards of stone under his feet had also disappeared. What replaced them were squares of different colors. The various colored tiles extended into the distance like an enormous chessboard. What is this? Nothing big. Pu Yao suppressed the shock inside and said in a normal tone. You broke the first prison left by someone before you, so the first prison will be reconstructed. Oh, so it's like that. Zhuo Mo's face showed realization. He casually walked forward and stepped into a green square. There were no changes. He stepped into another square, and there was still no change. It just changed appearance. The shock in Zhuo Mo's heart disappeared. He felt it was very boring, and his expression disappeared. Suddenly, the scene in front of him changed again. He seemed to have flown to a very high place and was looking down from an aerial view. He saw an enormous chessboard. The disorderly tiles formed a strange shape. The figure seemed slightly familiar to Zhuo Mo. He quickly understood what the pattern was. Wasteland beast, that was a wasteland beast. Create a name. Pu Yao's light voice sounded at Zhuo Mo's ears. Wasteland beast chessboard. Zhuo Mo's mind moved, and he blurted out. Boom boom boom. The sound was like thunder. The pattern of the wasteland beast on the chessboard seemed to suddenly become alive. A thread of gray smoke came out of the chessboard, and in a blink, turned to a wasteland beast. The lantern-sized red and vicious eyes, the bleak and disdainful presence, the roiling and shapeless body. It glanced at Zhuo Mo and suddenly burrowed back into the chessboard. The chessboard under him once again became what it was originally. In the minds of the Yao that had excitedly charged into the first prison, 3 words floated up simultaneously: Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Chapter 355, Bidding. Wasteland Beast Chessboard. Nan Yu couldn't resist repeating it lightly. The squares of various colors under her feet spread into the horizon without end. Lights occasionally flashed. Every Yao who entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard was filled with shock. There were no obstacles in their vision. They seemed to be on a broad plain. The Yao further away seemed like black dots in their field of view. The strange colored squares under their feet reminded them this was a place filled with weirdness. Some of the people that had been doubting the prison-breaking battle had their suspicions dissipate when they saw the completely transformed first prison. They stared dazedly with wide mouths as they looked at the borderless chessboard that was almost unimaginable. Nan Yu fought free from her shock. She released a long breath. She was filled with curiosity. What was unique about Darren's Wasteland Beast chessboard? She wanted to try when a slightly cold voice sounded from behind her. Pardon me, are you student Nan Yu? Nan Yu turned around and saw a slightly thin but handsome youth standing with a smile. He bowed slightly. This one is Lang Yu, from Western Mountain Cold Clan. Western Mountain Cold Clan. Nan Yu was slightly bewildered. The Wisteria clan of the South Sky might have a glorious past, but it had been in decline for a long time. Struggling on the poverty line, how could Nan Yu pay attention to those rich and powerful families? Lang Yu responded very quickly. Seeing the expression on Nan Yu's face, he understood that the other's birth was definitely very normal. He couldn't help but rejoice inside. Yesterday, the news he had sent back to the sect had attracted attention from the clan. For this, they had used all their power to investigate the origins of the mysterious prison-breaking Yao. Even though the origins of the prison-breaking Yao was a puzzle, but they still found some clues. For example, Nan Yu. Up to here, there was nothing that Lang Yu had to do. He did not have the qualifications for future matters. But his luck was really good, and coincidentally encountered Nan Yu when he entered the Wasteland Beast chessboard. Towards a very alert Lang Yu, how could he pass such a good chance? It was a pity that he wasn't the only one with good luck. Those that had the power to find Nan Yu weren't just the Cold family. Are you Miss Nan Yu? ethereal-looking female clad in a white robe appeared at the side and politely bowed to Nan Yu. "This one is by Ro Lien." "Ha! Such a coincidence." A brawny large male about 3 zhang tall appeared out of nowhere and bowed with great politeness towards Nan Yu. "Miss Nan Yu, and is Zhangzhe." Leng Yu and Bai Ro Lien's expressions were not too good, but they were all from influential families, and had some shrewdness. Even though they were wary, but their faces quickly were covered with smiles again as though they were good friends. Nan Yu was not dumb. When she saw this, she knew what was happening, and grimaced inside. At this time, a voice that was like a blessing from heaven sounded at Nan Yu's ears. "Nan Yu." Suemo had detected Nan Yu's position and ran over. Nan Yu was his follower in name, and was really one of his people. Towards his own people, Suemo usually cared for them. From their recent interactions, Suemo felt that Nan Yu was good in all areas, and hard-working. She was worthy of being fostered. When Nan Yu saw Suemo, it was like she had seen her savior. Darren. Whoosh, the other 3 people's eyes landed on Suemo. Even though they had all seen Suemo's figure from the Yao recording art, but when they saw him from close up, they were still stunned by Suemo's youth. Darren. The 3 of them were abnormally in sync as they respectfully bowed. The respect on their faces were not out of politeness but came from their hearts. They had a good family background, and received the best teachings. Their strength was far above those of their age, but all of this could not be discussed when compared with the Darren in front of them. In front of such a genius that was able to leave behind his mark on Yao society, what assets did they have to be proud of? N. Suemo paused. These 3 people he did not know called him Darren. Their brains were wonky. He looked suspiciously at Nan Yu and pointed at the trio. "What is this?" "Darren, I'm not very clear either." Nan Yu's expression was pitiable. Suemo turned his face around. "Who can tell me what is going on?" As a boss of a group of experts, he naturally formed a presence over time. Once he was serious, the unquestionable tone made the trio's hearts shake. All 3 of them were smart. In that short sentence, the 3 could detect many things. Even Leng Yu, who had originally assumed that Suemo came from an unknown family, changed his previous speculation. This junior is by Ro Lien, and is representing the white family to congratulate Darren for his successful prison breaking. Bai Ro Lien was the first to speak. Her tone was respectful, her voice was sweet and pleasing to hear. "The white family has prepared some gifts for Elder Darren, please accept them." Leng Yu and Zhangzhe felt depressed. This wench had gone one step in front of them. They instantly felt as though they had eaten a fly, and were unspeakably uncomfortable. However, the 2 reacted quickly and hurried to speak. The Cold family, the Grey clan, Suemo listened and generally understood what was going on. He waved his hand and interrupted the 2 people. "All right, say what you need." One by one. Finishing, he pointed at Bai Ro Lien. "You first." Bai Ro Lien was smug inside but did not dare to forget herself. She respectfully said, "The white family earnestly requests for Darren to enter the Peace River Yao Art House. The entire house will give you the best treatment. The white family is willing to give 6 million each year, and a heart-spirit residence. The white family will pay for all of Darren's expenses, and Darren can cultivate all the Yao arts of the Peace River Yao Art House." Nan Yu gaped. Heavens, 6 million each year. Even if she graduated from the Purple Lotus Yao Art House and found a job, her monthly income definitely would not surpass 1,000. Yet what was more valuable was that heart-spirit residence. Compared to the spirit clarity residence that the house elder had given to her this morning, the heart-spirit residence was even more expensive. A heart-spirit residence's price on the market would start at 10 million on the market. Really generous. Nan Yu's expression was stunned. Sui Mo was very happy. Huh, so much jingsher. Oh, no, the Yao world should not be using jingsher, but Sui Mo understood that this definitely was not a low price. It could be seen from Nan Yu's expression. However, Sui Mo was a very experienced person. He had an innate intuition about bargaining. Adding on his wealth of battle experience, the three brats in front of him were three rich and sweet lambs. ZZT ZZT ZZT. The sound of knives being honed sounded in Sui Mo's heart, but his expression remained neutral as though he was a person who did not care for mortal matters. He pointed at Xianxia and said, "You talk." Xianxia became alert. "Darren, our clan is willing to give Darren 8 million annually. The clan does not have a heart spirit residence, but the clan is willing to provide Darren 3 golden souls each year." Bai Rou Lian's expression instantly became terrible. She was not shocked that Xianxia was able to give a tribute of 8 million each year. What she was shocked about was golden souls. The rumors said that the Grey clan possessed a gold tree. It seemed that it was true. Lang Yu's expression was ashen. The last hope in his heart was destroyed. To say nothing about the fact the clan had not given him the power to negotiate, but even with the permission, he believed that the clan would not be able to give a price higher than this. It was not just the Cold clan was unable to do so, the White clan was also unable. When he saw Bai Rou Lian's black face, the depressed Lang Yu felt much better. Even though he didn't know what golden soul was, but his intuition told Sui Mo this definitely was something rare and good. Golden soul. Pu Yao's voice trembled slightly. "Take this one." Sui Mo did not accept. He nodded to Xianxia and then turned his gaze to Lang Yu. Lang Yu docilely said, "Darren, we cannot give a price higher than brother Xianxia." This result was not unexpected to Sui Mo, something that even Pu Yao changed expression at. It definitely was something good. He guessed that Lang Yu could not give a higher price, but out of caution, he still asked. "Okay." Sui Mo said to Xianxia, "You follow me. Nan Yu, come as well." Xianxia was overjoyed and hurried to follow. Bai Rou Lian's black expression disappeared. Lang Yu did not have any more interest in seeing the wasteland beast chessboard, and returned to report this matter. There was no one around. Sui Mo sat down and said to the two, "Sit." Xianxia respectfully sat down, and Nan Yu sat down next to Sui Mo. In just this little while, Pu Yao quickly introduced Sui Mo to the golden soul. The golden soul was born from the golden tree and was very rare. Pu Yao had assumed that the golden tree had gone extinct. The golden soul could quickly strengthen the consciousness and also expand the sea of consciousness. What it was most valuable at was that it could strengthen the spirit, and cause it to become even more pure and refined. Yao cultivated the consciousness. How strong the consciousness was what determined strength. But the strength of the consciousness could not cause it to become pure and refined. Pure spirit was even more stabilized, and the sea of consciousness was even more secure. Unpure consciousness would become a hidden weakness. The deeper one cultivated, the more dangerous it would become. Golden soul was a great treasure that was not easily found, and for Pu Yao, whose spirit was greatly wounded, golden soul was what he desperately needed to heal himself. So when he heard the words golden soul, he couldn't control himself. What Sui Mo cared about was another problem. The only place he could interact with them was in the wasteland beast chessboard. To say nothing of the fact he was now trapped in the ancient battlefield, even if he left, he could not come to the Yao world. Golden soul was like the water breath bead. It could be taken into the 10-finger prison. This was what Sui Mo prioritized. However, there were no problems on his side, but he was not sure that Xianxia would accept his conditions. The other would not easily give something like golden soul away. So he spoke of his problem. As expected, when he heard that Sui Mo could not move to the Grey Clan, Song Zai's expression was not good. Truthfully, the price that Song Zai gave was already the highest price. Sui Mo might have reconstructed the wasteland beast chessboard, but this was only the first prison. In other words, what Sui Mo displayed now was astonishing potential and not great strength. Before it became strength, potential was just potential no matter how amazing it was. It was filled with uncertainty and risk. Song Zai was silent for a long time. Sui Mo instantly thought it was bad. Damn it, if something this good flew away, he would cry. Just as Sui Mo had a headache, Pu Yao finally couldn't resist speaking. Chapter 356, New Changes. Ask him what level of grey scar art he has cultivated to. Sui Mo immediately detected Pu Yao's urgent tone when he suddenly spoke. After being in contact with Pu Yao for a long time, Sui Mo gradually learned some of Pu Yao's habits. Usually, Pu Yao looked down his nose at the great majority of matters, but when it was something that was of great help to him, he would not disguise his urgent desire. Speaking from this perspective, Pu Yao was very straightforward. However, the great majority of the time, his straightforwardness was not very easy for a person to accept. For example, he did not disguise his desire for the golden souls. Also, for example, if Sui Mo did not get the golden souls for him, then what was waiting for him were countless pitfalls. Pu Yao's threats were bare naked. Sui Mo knew this very well. He coughed lightly, and said, "What step have you reached with your grey scar art?" Song Zai was very shocked. Grey scar art, the other new grey scar art. Nan Yu detected Song Zai's shock from the side. She thought inside, was this another Yao art like the South Sky Arrow art? Darren was really mysterious. Song Zai tightly stared at Sui Mo as he wanted to see hints from Sui Mo's face. But Sui Mo was a very experienced person. He stiffened his face, and copied Pu Yao's expressionless face very well. Inside, he muttered, "I was such a pure and generous person before. After staying so long with Pu Yao, I'm now skilled in conning and lying." Of course, he would not feel any guilt. He was trying to act out his role properly. Song Zai could not find any clues. Since the other could say the name of the grey scar art, he should not be speaking nonsense. Of the many Yao arts that existed now in the Grey Clan, grey scar art was very unnoticeable. Those youths of the clan who had the slightest talent would not choose this Yao art as their primary cultivation. They would like Yao arts such as grey sea art or grey cloud art that were more powerful. But as the grandson of the clan leader, he knew more than normal Grey Clan members. For example, the Council of Elders had never stopped their secret studies of the Grey Scar art. The Grey Clan had so many Yao arts, but why did the other just mention the Grey Scar art? Countless thoughts flashed through Song Zai's mind. He lowered his head and said respectfully, "This one has not cultivated Grey Scar art." Not cultivated? Pu Yao stilled. Sui Mo reacted rapidly and stilled as well. "You have not cultivated Grey Scar art? Has the Grey Clan created some other powerful Yao art?" Pu Yao murmured to himself. His brows furrowed, and he was slightly surprised. "Has your Grey Clan created some powerful Yao art?" Sui Mo learned and sold it at the same time. Song Zai gritted his teeth. Not created new Yao art, but this student is stupid and has not been allowed access to Grey Scar art. His heart beat wildly, his term for himself changing from this one to this student. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's brow smoothed as he released a breath. "Tell him you will teach him Grey Scar art, in exchange for 5 golden souls each year." "You know Grey Scar art?" Sui Mo asked Pu Yao suspiciously. "That thing is very simple, it just curves from normal." Having found his confidence, Pu Yao waved his hand with bravado. Sui Mo was both trusting and suspicious. Pu Yao really knew too many things. However, his thoughts did not affect his reaction. He lightly coughed. I happen to know a bit about cultivating gray scar art. Zhang felt a strong feeling of happiness burst over his mental defenses. He actually felt a threat of dizziness. His voice trembled slightly. Really? Yes, Sui Mo forced himself to say. At this time, Zhang showed his quality as the grandson of the clan leader. He did not lose control but suppressed his excitement. He asked respectfully, what can my Grey clan do for teacher? Sui Mo looked with praise at Zhang. He thought inside that this boy was very adept. However, he did not give the other a discount due to his praise. 10 golden souls each year. When he opened, Sui Mo doubled Pu Yao's price. It's not GE is greedy, GE has a home and people to support. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao gazed with bulging eyes. Hiss, Zhang sucked in a breath. Even though he had predicted that the price the Grey clan would pay would not be low, but 10 golden souls annually, this price still far surpassed his estimate. This matter is grave. This student needs to ask the elders of the sect. Zhang carefully answered. All right. Sui Mo did not waste words. He pointed at Nan Yu and said, she is my follower, just find her in the future. Hearing this, Zhang hurriedly exchanged spirit imprints with Nan Yu. A simple, gray, character flew in front of Zhang. At the sides were 2 gray-green sparse shrubs. Nan Yu also took out her own spirit imprint. Her spirit imprint was the 2 characters South Sky, formed by a curved purple vine. Noticing Nan Yu's spirit imprint, Zhang's heart moved. In his investigation, Nan Yu did not have much of a background. She was born from a very small clan, their living conditions were difficult, and they were very normal. Seeing her spirit imprint, he couldn't help but be shocked. Being from an influential family, he naturally would not lack knowledge about spirit imprints. The way that the South Sky was written was completely different than what it was written like now. This kind of spirit imprint would mostly appear on those clans with long histories. He noted it down, and planned on making an investigation when he returned. He reached out with a finger and gently poked the South Sky. A purple light flew into his spirit imprint. Nan Yu did the same. After exchanging spirit imprints, the 2 sides would easily get in contact. Zhang hurriedly bid farewell. He was in a hurry to go back and report. He had a feeling that this chance was very likely to be a chance in the Grey clan's fortunes. After Zhang left, Sui Mo taught Nan Yu for a while before he left. So he went the way of deconstruction. Qian Lu was slightly puzzled. A pretty unique style. The fire-faced person seemed to be uninterested in the wasteland beast chessboard. Looking around, he suddenly snickered and said, those little brats probably can't stop themselves now. Qian Lu knew the people the fire-faced person was referring to. He smiled but did not speak. He continued to observe the wasteland beast chessboard. He had left vast water clear skies 300 years ago when he had broken the prison. He had not paid much attention to this incident in the past. But his curiosity did not decrease today. He could not remember how long it had been since he came to vast water clear skies. As an expert that stayed in the 7th prison, the 1st prison was really a distant memory. Today, he had come especially to take a lot what the newly constructed prison by the guy who had broken his vast water clear skies looked like. I heard he is also very young. Qian Lu asked interestedly. Very young. The fire-faced person's eyes raised his eyebrows. The face inside the ball of fire raised his brows with schadenfreude. He's probably on the list of the little brats as a target to challenge. That's not bad. Qian Lu said neutrally, competition is good. He took back his consciousness and said with regret, pity I cannot activate the prison-breaking battle. The powerful stuff is all in there. The conditions to activate the prison-breaking battle were mysterious. For example, no one had activated the first prison, vast water clear skies, in the 300 years. However, in the last 300 years, the second, fourth, and fifth prisons had all been activated. The pattern involved was hard to predict. Qian Lu had activated a prison-breaking battle and knew much more than normal people. The conditions to activate the prison-breaking battle did not have a direction connection with power, but the level of the person. It was also a very subtle connection. It would not work if the person's level was too high, like he was currently. He could activate the first prison's prison-breaking battle 300 years ago, but the present him could not do so. It would also not work if their level was too low. Also, the 10-finger prison seemed to favor Young Yao. More accurately, Young Yao with high levels. It really was a pity. Qian Lu shook his head regretfully. The other's most powerful Yao art imprint was inside the prison-breaking battle. The wasteland beast chessboard was filled with profound and exquisite deconstructing Yao arts. It was like a rich sea of problems. Qian Lu had fought against many experts before, but it was the first time he had seen such an unique style. His heart itched and was hard to resist. The fire-faced person saw the regret on Qian Lu's face and suddenly crowded over. I have a solution. What solution? Get the group of brats to come. The fire-faced person seemed to want the world in chaos. That group of brats definitely is full of motivation right now. Let them come break the wasteland beast chessboard. Qian Lu's thoughts shifted, but he shook his head and said, the prison-breaking battle is not so easy to activate. That isn't our business. I speculate that the group of old farts is also interested, the fire-faced said and snickered. He then said with righteous magnanimity, don't worry about this matter, I'll get them to come. Qian Lu was truly curious about Zhuo Mo's Yao arts. He smiled and did not stop the other, only saying, don't make it too big. Don't worry, don't worry. The fire-faced person's expression was excited. Zhuo Mo came out of the wasteland beast chessboard and felt a warm gust of air on his face. He shook, and hurriedly opened his eyes. A familiar face was almost pressed to his. Agui. He released a breath. Holding up Agui's face, he asked curiously, what were you doing? Agui stared dazedly at him and did not reply. When Zhuo Mo finished speaking, he stilled. Wait. Joy suddenly came into his eyes. Agui. Agui still looked dumbly at Zhuo Mo without any response. The joy on Zhuo Mo's face gradually retreated. He examined Agui closely. Her eyes were still empty and wooden. He couldn't help but have a disappointed expression. Agui had not recovered. He shook his head, and mocked himself. He was really too greedy. He quickly recovered from his disappointment. Even though Agui had not recovered, but she was much more lively now compared to before. At the very least, this was a sign of a good turn of fortunes. Thinking it through, the depression over Zhuo Mo's heart instantly swept away, and he roused himself. Jumping up, he picked Agui up and put her on his back as he charged outside. Agui, let's go. We'll go to Shu Long's place to play. Chapter 357, Shadow Mo Garda. Whenever since the guard camp was established, it seemed fated to have a hidden competitive relationship with Vermilion Bird Camp, even though the majority of the camp guards were once Vermilion Bird Camp's captives. At the start, Vermilion Bird Camp had been unparalleled in its strength, and dominated all of Little Mountain Jia. In reality, for a very long time after the camp was formed, Guard Camp had been in a very awkward state. They were weak offensively, could not fight for Darren, and in many occasions, they were a burden. Even many people from Vermilion Bird Camp could not understand why Darren would set up guard camp who was so weak in battle. Everyone in guard camp had a grudge. They furiously cultivated without holding back any energy back. They never asked why they were cultivating, why were they cultivating like this? They only buried their heads and cultivated. Hardship. They were show slaves, they were not afraid of hardship. Finally, the situation changed when Xu Long formed his armor. After forming his armor, Xu Long did not just recover his youth, but his combat abilities had become comparable to the top tier under Darren's command. The Crow Fiend Emo Kill formation was finally effective in battle, but the main force in battles was still Vermilion Bird Camp. Their heavy and clumsy armor caused their movements to be slow. This made them take up a more defensive position in battles. The situation had finally changed now. Xu Long tightly grasped the long halberd in his hand. A cold feeling passed back as though a burst of strength burrowed into his body. His chest was filled with motivation. It wasn't as simple as just getting a weapon. Xu Long suddenly saw Suemo and Ague in the doorway, and hurriedly bowed. Suemo looked around. Seeing everyone working hard, a smile came onto his face. Not bad. Suemo had been worried about morale previously. Seeing the business of the campsite, his heart relaxed slightly. In reality, guard camp's morale had been good all along. This place was filled with black fiendish energy. It gave the guard camp the hope of surpassing Vermilion Bird Camp. They worked even harder on their cultivation. Vermilion Bird Camp's morale was more severely affected, but after Suemo threw them, Fiend Ling, they had settled down. The path to leave this land could be slowly searched for, but if they did not even have the Ling energy to cultivate, that was a blade that hung above the necks of Xianxia. Owen saw Suemo and ran over. Darren, Darren. When Suemo saw Owen, he asked with a smile, Owen, how's your cultivation going? Owen was much healthier than when he had been rescued. His exquisite armor did not feel clumsy at all, but nimble and light. Haha, Darren, look. Owen held up his black spear as though he was presenting a treasure. My weapon formed too. And I also comprehended some fun things. The completely black long spear had no adornment, but it gave the feeling of being finely crafted. The lines were smooth and flowing, 2 grooves on either side of the spear point. The fiery red charm hung at the head of spear and caused the black spear which originally seemed murderous and cold to have a hint of fire. Can the spear leave your body? Suemo asked. No. Owen scratched his head and said, the black speak is condensed from killing energy. If it leaves my hand, it will dissipate. Suemo's interest was stirred. Come, show me. Owen obeyed. With a somersault, he flew out 20 zhang. Seeing this, the other people in the campsite stopped what they were doing and cheered Owen on. Little monkey, one more. Little monkey, don't embarrass yourself in front of Darren. Haha, little monkey, if you can't do it, switch for someone else. When Owen had been rescued, his figure had been very small. Even though he was much healthier now, but among this camp of burly men, his figure really was on the small side. Adding on that Owen's personality was lively and active, he was also clever, everyone called him Little Monkey. Ha, just be jealous. Owen shot back. His smiling face suddenly turned serious as he stood holding his spear. The noisy camp instantly quieted. Everyone's mirth retreated, their expressions becoming serious. Owen might be young, but he was exceptionally talented, and was firmly held his spot as the second strongest member of the guard camp, his strength just a bit less than Xu Long's. They were also very curious about what Owen had comprehended from staying in meditation for so long in the fiendish mist. Xu Long had a gratified expression. He was the oldest, his personality was steady and well established. His competitive desire was weak. He had basically taught everything to Owen. Seeing Owen improve rapidly, he was very happy. Owen's expression was serious. The air flowed in streams around him and gradually sped up. In an instant, the air started to hiss like an arrow traveling at a high speed. Clang! With the sound of metallic impact, many black and gold plumes popped out of the black armor. Suemo was very shocked. Owen's figure was thin and slender to begin with. With the addition of these long feather-like black gold plumes, he looked even more nimble. Owen bent his legs slightly and then his figure disappeared from his spot. So fast. Suemo's pupils slightly shrunk. His eyes were not ordinary but he could only see a streak of black. He was shocked. Unless Suemo used the light void wings, he would be left eating dust behind Owen with that speed. This boy's talent isn't bad. Pu Yao couldn't resist popping in. Look, this is the difference. He can cultivate to this step using a trashy, hardship guard. Don't you feel ashamed? Ashamed? Why should I be ashamed? Suemo did not turn his eyes and responded, "It's better the stronger he is." Pu Yao finally recalled the person in front of him had such a thick face that he was immune to mockery of this degree. Suemo rubbed his chin and said directly, "Not bad, not bad. This fast, we don't have to use turtle tactics in the future. Can he fly? It will be great if there is flight. Don't think so optimistically." Pu Yao could not bear to see Suemo's content state, and smirked. This boy is very talented. The other people lack greatly compared to him. They can only be heavy armor hardship guards. His tone then turned. So many cultivation sects, they are all blind to dismiss such a good seed. Pu Yao started his usual habit of mocking everyone. Suemo ignored him and looked seriously at Owen. Owen's speed was extremely fast, and rivaled the sword Xiu when they flew on their swords. His nimbleness was actually better than sword Xiu. Suemo, who could be considered to be an old-timer, was very clear how much of an advantage such speed would be in combat. Midair, Owen flipped again, and the black spear in his hand suddenly thrust. Hiss! A section of the spear point suddenly appeared out of the air in a place 30 zhang from his body. What is that? Suemo's expression changed. Airbreaker, a little technique. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Even though he said this, Pu Yao could not disguise the pride on his face. So young and he comprehended airbreaker. It can be considered rare for Mo guards. Pu Yao's tone turned to be slightly regretful. Actually, Xu Long's talent is also not bad, but it is a pity that his age when he started cultivation is slightly old. All of the others sighed in shock. They widened their eyes in fear of missing any detail. Many of the techniques that Owen was showing now was great inspiration to him, especially the camp guards that had broken through and formed their weapon. In the air, Owen seemed unconstrained by space. The tip of his spear thrust would appear in any place within 100 zhang of him according to his will. In a good mood, Pu Yao started to urge. Actually, hardship guards like this boy's kind is rare. The greatest duty of Mo guards are to protect their master, not to kill enemies. That is why Mo guards are frequently large blockheads. These people from guard camp are too weak. The best Mo guards are mountain range bull Mo, and stone rhinoceros Mo. If they cultivate, hardship guard, TSK, they are just moving mountains. If it is the mantis Mo that cultivate, hardship guard, it is more common for shadow Mo guards specialized in speed to appear. But mantis Mo are guys who will die if they are touched. Who would use them as guards? Maybe if they do not want to live a long time. Hearing this, Suemo noticed the other people in guard camp. As expected, they were all big blockheads. Each person's body was full of exaggerated muscles. Their figures were half again as large as normal people on average. Adding on the thick armor, they were like mobile steel forts. At this time, the red charm on Wen's black spear suddenly turned to a thread of fire and wrapped around the tip of the spear. Kill! Wen shouted. A light that intermingled red and black tore apart the air. Boom! Everyone felt their vision light up. A burning and fiendish wave of air blew through the entire guard camp. When the air gust subsided, a deep pit about 5 zhang wide appeared on the corner of the campsite. It was an easy matter to make a pit 5 zhang wide. However, this pit seemed slightly deep. Sua Mo flew to beside the pit, and looked inside. His heart was instantly shocked. This pit most likely was not less than 20 zhang deep. Making a pit with a width of 5 zhang was not hard, but a pit that was deeper than 20 zhang was very difficult to accomplish. This pit was formed like a knife cutting tofu. The bottom and top part of the hole were the same width. This showed one thing. Wen's attacking force was concentrated and evenly distributed. Suemo judged that if he was hit, he would probably lose half of his life. Wen's figure flashed and he appeared next to Suemo. Not bad, little monkey, Suemo praised. You have really broadened my vision. Wen's face suddenly became flushed, and slightly embarrassed. Darren, do not ridicule this humble performance. Ho, little monkey, you're embarrassed now. Haha, little monkey's face is very thin. The people in the surroundings instantly started. Wen was even more embarrassed. He scratched his head and stood at the side. Seeing this, the other people laughed even more happily. Suemo also couldn't resist roaring in laughter. Is what you say true? The elders in the room exploded. Many of the elders unconsciously stood up. These elders' emotions were turbulent, and they forgot to keep their strength back. All the furniture in the room creaked and exploded in pieces. Zhangzai's scalp turned numb. He did not dare to breath. He said so. How can he know how to cultivate gray scar art? He definitely is a liar. Who cares if he is a liar? Catch him and then we will know. Catch? What if he really knows? If we offend him, we will really lose greatly. The Grey Clan elders talked over each other, their faces red and their necks thick as though they were going to kill someone. Zhangzai buried his head lower, and grimaced inside. Alright, all of you shut up. A deep voice sounded. All of the voices disappeared. The chief elder finally spoke. Zhangzai wiped away the cold sweat and celebrated inside. What conditions does he have? The chief elder opened his eyes in his wrinkle-filled face. 10 golden souls. Each year. The enormous elder room was deathly silent. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.